So this year, there is no school district portion to our meeting due to the consolidation of school districts. And so, the Dummerston Town Meeting is hereby called to order. Please rise if you are able for the salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Very often. I'd like to begin again this year with an invocation that originated in Danville, Vermont. We are gathered together today in civil assembly as a community in a tradition that is older than our state itself. We come together to make decisions about our community. As we deliberate, let us advocate for our positions, but not at the expense of others. Let us remember that our neighbors with whom we disagree are good people with hopes and dreams as true and high as ours. And let us always remember that in the end, caring for each other in this community is of far greater importance than any difference we may have. Can I ask for folks in the back to be a little quieter so everyone can hear the meeting? Thank you. We have lost some members of our community in the last year. I will read their names and then we'll have a brief moment of silence. Neil Quinn, Tom Johnson, Jonathan Flackus, Callan Latham Tyler, David Koski, Stephen Brown, Claude Goen, John Carter, Nelson Gilson, Dick Tuttle, Art Snarski, Bob Karg Sr., Lynn Billington, Paul Nelson, Janice Duke, Priscilla Smith, Shorty Ferret, Leslie Pierce, Bunny Hazelton, and Martha Chamberlain. Thank you. Let's acknowledge and thank the scores of people who work to make our town as special as it is. On page 1 and 2 of your town report, if you have one, all of our elected and appointed officials are listed. If you are one of those folks, or if you serve on our road crew, volunteer fire department, or rescue squad, please stand. Come on, guys. Thank you. I'll remind you of the Adopt a Book program in the school library today. Please adopt a book and consider volunteering to keep this important program going. Childcare is available today in the first grade classroom, which is out that door and the second door on the right. This meeting is being recorded by Brattleboro Community Television. You can watch it later this week on Comcast Channel 1085, Southern Vermont Cable Channel 10, and online at brattleboro.tv.org. For anyone speaking at the meeting, please stand and state your name every time and speak directly into the microphone so that the viewers in the room and at home can hear you. Thank you. Please put your cell phones on vibrate. In order to speak at town meeting, you must be a registered Dummerston voter. It's our tradition to make an exception for those who represent Dummerston at the State House. Accordingly, I will give the privilege of speaking to our legislators and will interrupt our proceedings when they arrive so that they may present their reports and answer your questions. You also must be a registered Dummerston voter to vote on any issue today. If you have difficulty standing, you have the option of holding up a card when a division of the House is called. Please raise your hand now if you would like a card and haven't yet received one. If you need one later on, let our mic numbers know and they'll come and get one for you. If there's no objection, we'll break for lunch around noon. It's provided by the good folks at the Grange, headed by Larry Lynch Jr. and Sally May. Because we anticipate a shorter meeting, the menu is soup and sandwiches. The cost is $5 for all. I was nervous when I didn't see pie in there. I thought we might have a riot on our hands, but it sounds like we're getting another kind of dessert that sounds equally wonderful. So you have to stick around to see what that is. Lori Frechette, our town clerk, has prepared a helpful summary of the rules of town meeting. Copies are on the table in the back of the room, and I encourage you to familiarize yourself with it. Please remember to state your name every time you stand to speak, otherwise I'll interrupt you and ask you to do so. Lori's in the back of the room helping with people who are registering to vote today. Eliza Greenhoe is a new assistant town clerk and is taking minutes today. We need to make sure that she knows the name of each person that makes a motion and the name of the person who seconds it. So I know many names, but not all, so make sure we know your name if you do one of those things. A few highlights. Robert's Rules of Order govern our meeting. To speak all together now, raise your hand, wait for the microphone, and then state your name. Even if you have a commanding voice, please wait for the microphone so that people watching from home can hear you. We have 4 able assistants today, mic runners. Thank you, Ellen Rago, for gathering this great crew. Starting out, oh, Kyle, are you starting out instead of Sadie, or is Sadie still here? There you are, ready to go. Okay, starting out are Sadie Mills and Michael Thibault, right there, and we're going to have backups from Kyle Megiolaro and Zadie Olmstead, and then there are other 8th graders doing the babysitting. So, good citizens already. Thank you. All motions and remarks should be addressed to the moderator. That's me. If you have a question for someone, you still address it to me. We're not supposed to have conversations going back and forth between people. I ask the members of our Board of Civil Authority to be ready to count if a division of the House is requested. My job is to help you, the voters, accomplish your will. If you're not sure how to do something, ask me. I go to a training for moderators every year. This year, again, we were reminded that questions are supposed to come to the moderator, and this includes, under Robert's rules, there are no conversations between members of the body. You are the body. We have found only one error in this year's town report. In the meeting minutes from last year, on page 64, we approved a tax exemption for the West Dummerston Volunteer Fire Department for 5 years, not just 1 year, which is why you don't see it on the warning again this year. And now we begin. You will find the warning on page 66 of your town report if you have one. There were a few on the table in the back. I don't know if there are any left, but feel free to check it out if you don't have one. Page 64 shows the minutes from last year, so I'll borrow Zeke's funny line and ask you to open your hymnals to page 66. Article 1 refers to the election of town officers by Australian ballot and so requires no action by this body. Article 2, to act on the auditor's report of the town accounts. Is there a motion? It's not on. Peter, can we get your help? This mic doesn't seem on.
Madam Moderator, I move that we accept the auditor's report of the town accounts.
Is there a second? I second that. So Terry Chapman and Louis White. It has been moved and seconded that we accept the auditor's report of the town accounts. Any debate? Seeing none, I'll assume you're ready for the question. It has been moved and seconded that we accept the auditor's report of the town accounts. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and we have accepted the auditor's report. Article 3, to see if the voters will vote to authorize their select board to appoint a receiver of delinquent taxes. Is there a motion?
Yes, Madam Moderator, I move that we authorize the Select Board to appoint a receiver of delinquent taxes.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Zeke and Lewis. It has been moved and seconded that we authorize the Select Board to appoint a receiver of delinquent taxes. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion to authorize the Select Board to appoint a receiver of delinquent taxes, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. The ayes appear to have it, the ayes do have it, and the Select Board is so authorized. Article 4, to see if the voters will vote to raise the sum of $210,000 through taxes and appropriate said amount to the capital fund for future capital needs. Is there a motion?
Madam Moderator, I move that we raise the sum of $210,000 through taxes and appropriate said amount to the capital fund for future capital needs.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Maria Lewis. Lewis, you're doing great. It has been moved and seconded that we raise the sum of $210,000 through taxes and appropriate said amount to the capital fund for future capital needs. This is the raising part, not the spending part. Maria, is there anything you want to say about this? Or are you going to? All right.
Unless somebody has
I think
a
most
question.
of you know that we raise a pretty level sum every year and then spend what we need to. So, any discussion on this question? Seeing none. Paul Normandow?
Is the mic on?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Is anybody going to go over the capital fund items at this time? The reason I'm asking is I noticed that last year in the capital fund that we had a bond payment for the gravel pit. And this year, I noticed that it's in the highway fund, highway department fund. And it seems to me that if we're paying for our fire trucks and things that last for an extended period of time through the capital fund, that the bond payments should also be reflected in the capital fund, because we're paying for that over, I believe, a 20-year period, but maybe it's longer. But it's an extended period of time, and it's definitely a capital item for the town. So that's, and I didn't know, perhaps the select board could answer the logic that went into that. Thank you.
So the select board is interrogated as to why the bond payment for the gravel pit has been moved out of the capital plan and into the budget.
That was a discussion with our town treasurer, Charlotte, and it was recommended that we put it in the budget as opposed to the capital plan. Charlotte can.
Charlotte, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, I thought that because of additional items that the select board had chosen to add to the capital fund that tend to change from year to year, and this is going to be steady for the next 25 years, that the amount of money that we would have to raise to put into the capital fund to cover the bond payment, in addition to other items that were put into the capital fund new this year, like fire department things, that we just decided we'd move it into the highway fund.
So you are asking for information, Paul. I think your question has been answered. Is there any further debate on the motion to raise the sum of $210,000 through taxes for the capital fund? Okay, the motion is that we raise the sum of $210,000 through taxes and appropriate said amount to the capital fund for future capital needs. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay or no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and we have funded our capital fund. Article 5, to see if the voters will vote to authorize the following capital expenditure: the purchase of a payloader at a price not to exceed $150,000 and to pay for said purchase from the capital fund. Is there a motion?
Madam Moderator, I move that we authorize the following capital expenditure: the purchase of a payloader at a price not to exceed $150,000 and to pay for said purchase from the capital fund.
Is there a second? Yes, it's going to be easy for you.
Yeah.
It has been moved and seconded to authorize the following capital expenditure: the purchase of a payloader at a price not to exceed $150,000 and to pay for said purchase from the capital fund. Is there someone who would like to speak to this on the select board? This is traditionally a time when we look at the capital fund page in the town report and explain how we do this. Hearing nothing from the select board, is there any question from the body? Jody Normando. I shouldn't say your name because I'm wanting you to say your name. The woman in stripes.
Jody Normando. Why don't we, I move that we look at the capital plan and get it explained by the select board.
So you have made a motion to look at the capital plan and have the select board explain it. I cannot accept that motion while this other motion is on the floor. So I think we need to finish what's on the floor, and then if you would like to make a motion that the body request the select board to explain things now or soon, that would be okay.
May I request that the select board explain it?
Would you like to explain something now? Very good. Louis.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Louis White. After 16 years with the 2004 loader, we're planning on purchasing another loader for $150,000. There's also in the capital fund, we're going to be asking later on for a flail mower for $22,750. We've got the fire truck payment in there. The fire truck we purchased in, I believe it was 2018, and that's going to be $69,827. And then this year we're going to be asking again to put $4,000 in for fire department for their gear. And that's why this year, if you look at the bottom taxes raised, it's $210,000. Normally it's $170,000. We've been trying to keep it at $170,000. But with all those taken out, that would have dropped it in 2 years to almost about $100,000 or less. Actually, it was less than $100,000. So that's why we jumped it this year to $210,000. We're going to hopefully do that next year also. And then further out, we'll go to $170,000, back down to the $170,000. But so with all those taken out, you can see we're going to be down to $179,089 in the capital fund moving forward. And if Lee wants to talk about the loader, I wouldn't mind having him explain more about the loader himself, if he's here and not gathering sap. Thank you.
Lee is here, although unless the body has a question about the loader, I don't think we need to impose on him. Rick?
Thank you. Richard Mills, Hague Road. Can you explain the decision to paying a loader outright versus funding it over a term, like the fire truck spread out over 5 years versus the loader is being straight? Obviously, there's interest and it all ties into the overall budget, but how do you guys come about that decision to pay outright?
The Select Board is interrogated.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I'd like to answer that question. This is Lewis White again. The $150,000 for the loader, if you look at most all the town equipment, instead of having interest, this is why we have the capital fund, is so we don't have the interest. We did discuss with the fire department, and I'll get into that later. We don't want to do this with the fire department anymore either, because the interest does add up quickly. So their next truck, we're going to try to put in the capital fund further out. So it's going to be paid for upfront to get rid of the interest. So you do see the truck in there, yes. That's the way we had been doing the trucks in the past. This select board had discussed not doing that in the future, trying to pay for it to not have the interest.
The motion on the floor is to authorize the purchase of a payloader. Is there any further discussion? Yes, Cliff?
This is page 28. I'm Cliff Adler. I don't think, Louis, you mentioned that. People are kind of flipping through. We're on page 28?
The capital plan is on page 28 if you have your town report. Thank you, Cliff. So it has been moved and seconded that we authorize the following capital expenditure: the purchase of a payloader at a price not to exceed $150,000, and to pay for said purchase from the capital fund. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and we have purchased a payloader. Article 6, to see if the voters will vote to authorize the following capital expenditure: the purchase of 2 sets of gear for the fire department at a price not to exceed $4,000, and to pay for said purchase from the capital fund. Is there a motion?
Yes, Madam Moderator, I move that we authorize the following capital expenditure: the purchase of 2 sets of gear for the fire department at a price not to exceed $4,000, and to pay for said purchase from the capital fund.
And is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Louis.
No problem.
It has been moved and seconded to authorize the following capital expenditure: the purchase of 2 sets of gear for the fire department at a price not to exceed $4,000, and to pay for said purchase from the capital fund. And I just remembered I promised Charlotte that I would let her say something else about moving last year's gravel pit bond payment into the budget. You had something to add to that.
I just wanted to add, since my brain works slower than my mouth sometimes, when we were talking about putting the bond payment into the highway expenditure fund, it seemed like a good idea, because basically we're paying for our gravel, and out of that bond, we have a zero for the gravel now, but we put the bond payment in there. So it sort of offsets that a little bit better, if that makes any sense.
So we used to have a large number in the budget for gravel.
And
we
now
don't
we have-
anymore because we own a pit, and
Right.
so the bond payment seemed equivalent.
Right,
Okay,
close.
thank you for
Seemed
that.
like a good idea.
So the motion on the table is about purchasing 2 sets of gear for the fire department. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, it has been moved and seconded that we authorize the following capital expenditure: the purchase of 2 sets of gear for the fire department at a price not to exceed $4,000, and to pay for said purchase from the capital fund. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. And we have supplied our fire department. Article 7, to see if the voters will vote to authorize the following capital expenditure: the purchase of a Tiger flail mower at a price not to exceed $22,750, and to pay for said purchase from the capital fund. Is there a motion?
Yes, there is, Madam Moderator. I move that we authorize the following capital expenditure. The purchase of a Tiger flail mower at a price not to exceed $22,750, and to pay for said purchase from the capital fund.
And is there a second?
I'll second that.
Lewis. Thank you, Lewis.
I swear.
It has been moved and seconded that we authorize the following capital expenditure. The purchase of a Tiger flail mower at a price not to exceed $22,750, and to pay for said purchase from the capital fund. As a citizen, I'd love somebody to tell me what that is.
Well, several years ago, Lee made the recommendation that we, rather than put out the mowing along the right-of-ways out for bid each year, that the town could do that mowing if we had the equipment. And we purchased a lighter weight flail mower back then, and it's worked pretty well. It gives us more versatility in when and where to mow than the old system worked. But we found that a heavier duty flail mower would do a better job of mowing the rocks and stumps and occasional mailboxes that are in the way.
Okay, thank you for that, Zeke. Any discussion on the motion on the floor? Yes, Jody.
Jody Normando. Is this just a mower? This isn't one of those over-the-railing things?
No, it's
or
not an articulated over-the-rail mower.
Okay, so it's
But
just the grass.
The grass, mailboxes, anything that's in the right-of-way. This will do it.
Oh.
Cars, if you're parking illegally on the side of the road, you might take care.
Perhaps we wouldn't want to vote for this in that case, Madam Moderator.
Thank you for your input. Lewis, did you have something to add?
Lewis White. Jody, this is just a heavier duty. The other one was starting to fall apart. It was a 2013. We figured this is just, it's the same design, same type of mower. It's just heavy duty. So it should be more for commercial use rather than residential.
Any further discussion? Eric?
Eric Kruger. So I didn't know what a Tiger flail mower was, so I Googled it because we actually have internet here. And what I'm probably seeing is the pricing for the homeowner ones. They're like $2,000, $3,000.
Yeah, we don't want the town road crew to be pushing this by hand.
Right.
We're going to hook it up to a tractor.
The most expensive one I'm seeing on my quick Google search is like $8,000. So I'm curious where we came up with 22. I mean, some of the tractors with flail mowers are advertised for that price.
The select board is interrogated.
Lee has been researching this, and apparently there are other models in the Tiger line that you're not finding on your Google search. So this is a model. Lee's still negotiating with them to make sure it's the right mower, but this will be heavier steel commercial grade mower with a more robust gearbox and hammers and bearings.
Any further discussion? Yes, Connie.
Thanks. Connie Baxter. I'm just curious as to what is the fate of the old mower. That's the one that's falling apart. Are we going to keep using it and keep it going, or are we going to sell it, or what?
The select board is interrogated, but perhaps they'd like to delegate the answer to Lee.
Thank you.
Lee, could you raise your hand high so that there's Zadie?
Lee Chamberlain. Yes, we are going to still use it. It's not in great shape, but and we're not going to get very much for trade. So we'll use it until it's pretty much junk.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you, Lee. Any further discussion? Yes, Paul.
Excuse me, Paul Normando. Does that mean we'll be able to cut the limbs off the trees a little higher up and a little further back than what we've been doing lately? I'm very concerned about that, frankly. I'm very proud of Dummerston. It has great roads, great aesthetics along our back roads, but I get concerned when I see cutting the limbs up, and it kind of shreds them, and it leaves an awful mess when we drive down the road. Now I know this stuff will grow back, but it's going to grow back like in a fuzz, and it won't have the nice appearing. And we did this on Middle Road, we did this on Schoolhouse Road. So as a citizen, I'm very concerned about the aesthetics of what we do. And I would hope that we would be more careful with how we treat the sides of the roads. Thank you.
Louis, you'd like to answer that?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Louis White. Paul, this is a flail mower. It doesn't go up to do the sides of the road. That was a different piece of equipment that did that. So this is a flail mower just to get the grass. And it does get the smaller trees, but not the tops of the trees.
We rented that piece of
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, it has been moved and seconded that we authorize the following capital expenditure: the purchase of a Tiger Flail mower at a price not to exceed $22,750, and to pay for said purchase from the capital fund. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Article 8. Oh, and folks standing in the back, there are seats down front if you'd like. Article 8, to see if the voters will approve total general fund expenditures of $486,492, of which $319,410 shall be raised by taxes and $167,082 by non-tax revenues for the period of July 1st, 2020 to June 30th, 2021. Is there a motion?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Louis White. I move that we approve total general fund expenditures of $486,492, of which $319,410 shall be raised by taxes and $167,082 by non-tax revenues for the period of July 1st through 2020 to June 30th, 2021. And I can't second this.
I'll second. I'm going to second.
Geraldine seconds the motion. Thank you, Geraldine. And Louis, you'll be presenting this budget to us?
Yes.
Would you like to come up here?
Sure. I just want to say something before I start with the budget. It's just the process that we went through this year. During the budget process, the Select Board took a different approach than in the past. We started the meetings in October and met with various town committees. We tried to get all the town committees to come in to present their budget to us. We met with social services twice, and we ended up level funding with them. We met with farmland protection. We decided to do the $500,000. 5,000, 500,000. What the heck? I mean, we might as well. We can buy a few farms for that. And then we met with the fire department twice to work on their funding, and it was they came in with their budget, and we discussed what they wanted, and then we asked them back, and we had 3 of their folks come back. We explained to them, they asked for $30,000 for repairs to the fire department, and we explained to them that we'd like to see what you're going to do, the actual money. They wanted over a three-year period. They asked for the gear, which you saw in the capital fund. We talked to them about a new fire truck in the future. And it was really good to talk to all these committees because we opened up a good line of communication with people, like with the fire department. In the past, I don't think there was the communication the way, it was, here's what we want, and, and we're going to just level fund you. This year, with talking to them twice, I feel that we had real good communications and that, everybody's getting somewhat what they want, not necessarily everything they want. So if you have your town report, it is let's move to page 23. Okay, if you go to the last page, I say last page, yeah, right. If you go to page 26 and you look down at the number from last year to this year, it's an increase of $2,714. So when you have everything's not level funded because we got Sevids that I know they have an article in here, so that will raise it another $5,000 or more. But everything is, there's nothing I don't see that really stands out that people are going to really question. So if you do have questions, please ask Cindy and I'll try to answer them.
So Lewis was referring us to the general fund expenses, the total, which has gone up to $486,492 this year. Are there questions for Lewis? Jody.
Jody Normandeau. Madam Moderator, I'm going to question the BCTV assessment, and I'm not questioning having them. I think they're wonderful. But however, I've watched some of the select board meetings, and one was 4 minutes long and one was 9 minutes long. And I'm thinking that you don't really need BCTV in there, or if you can do your business in 4 or 9 minutes, maybe you ought to consolidate your minutes. I just think it's it's not a huge expense, but I think it's an expense for 4 or 9 minutes. Thank you.
Any other? Yeah, okay.
Jody, this year we had the gravel pit that we were dealing with. There was a lot of the stuff this year was pretty quick meetings, but BCTV does do a lot, and I know you said you weren't questioning what they do, but next year there may be longer meetings with more town business. This year, there were a lot of short meetings, and I don't know. I don't know if it was the guy running the meetings that didn't get to second anything, but.
Any other questions for the select board? Yes, standing in the back behind you, Kyle. Could you wait for the microphone and start by saying your name?
Yeah, Marcy Herman Sater. I just wanted to say that there are other programs that are relevant to Dummerston. Wendy O'Connell does an interview program, and people from Dummerston have been interviewed on that. So I don't know, I can't speak any further, but I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Wow. Oh yes, in the back.
Hi, I'm Richard Cogliano. I live on Beaver Pond Road, and I'm the Assistant Fire Chief for the West Dummerston Fire Department. I'd like to just make a comment and say, first of all, thank you for voting for 2 sets of gear under the capital fund. We really appreciate it. That's something we're going to be looking to do every year as our gear ages and we need to replace it. The other thing is, part of what the fire department asked for was an incremental increase to cover the cost of inflation. We have been level funded at $49.5 for the last 7 years. I don't know about all of you, but our electric bill has gone up, our cable and internet has gone up, And our mutual aid, actually, our mutual aid assessment, just the money we pay to be dispatched has gone up $7,685 in that time period. That's money that as volunteers we have to fundraise. So we would like to see that number, the 49.5, increased. We'd like to see that increase to $57,918, an increase of $8,418, which is the actual cost that we pay out for heating, cable and internet, power, and dispatching. That's just the added increase for those 4 items.
Thank you, Rick. Oh, sure.
Lewis White, when the fire department came to us, this is surprising to me to hear this, because when the fire department came to us and they asked for $75,000, which included $26,000 in capital expenditures. They wanted $4,000 for gear, $30,000 for improvements on the West Dummerston Fire Station. When we took the numbers and you did the math backwards, they actually asked for $49,000. We threw the $500,000 in because they didn't ask when they came to this meeting for any cost of living increase. We never heard this until right now. So it's sort of surprising and sort of disappointing that we thought we had a good line of communication going, and then I'm hearing that they're throwing a number to me that they didn't give us when they did their budget. So.
You'd like to speak a second time. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to this question first? Seeing none, go ahead, Rich.
Thank you. I'd like to respond to that. We did ask for $75,000. We asked for $10,000 for this year and $10,000 in future years each to cover the renovations to the West Station. We asked for $6,000 for gear. That's $16,000. And we asked for an increase due to inflation up to $57,000. When we did the math on, like I said, just those 4 items, it was actually $84,000. So we did propose a higher number, and I have the emails to prove that if anyone wants to see them.
Paul, you have your hand up. Can you raise it high so the mic runners can see? Thanks.
Paul Namando. I would like to point out that on page 19, if you look at the summary of municipal taxes that are going to have to be raised this year, if you take the difference between last year and this year, not counting the other items that are in the articles, other than the ledge crushing fund, the taxes that you'll be paying will be 12% higher next year than they were this year. So I would like everybody to bear that in mind. Thank you.
Would you like to speak to that, Lewis? Or someone else?
Yeah, that I will speak to that more when we get to the highway fund, Paul. Thank you for that, though, pointing that out.
Harold, down front, please.
Harold, no. I'd like the treasurer to tell us what that increase would be up to the 12% on 100,000 per tax rate, so people would realize the additional cost.
Harold, I think we're going to cover that in the next motion. If the next motion is the highway fund, yes, that's where the increase seems to be. So I'm going to hold off until then before we ask for discussion on that. Harold, you're asking for an explanation of the difference between the two figures of last year and this year just for the general fund. So that's a difference of 2,000 and something. Do you want to speak to that again, Lewis?
Yes. Harold, right now we're on the general fund. We will be on the highway. So that if we just took the general fund, it's only the $2,400 or $2,700. But so when we get to the general fund, And I think Charlotte's working on that. So when we get to the highway, I bet she'll have an answer for you.
Thank you, Louis. Yes, Charles.
Chuck Fish, is Rich Cogliano's remark an amendment to the motion, or is it just a comment?
I did not hear Mr. Cogliano make a motion. Rick has raised his hand again. Hold it like you.
Sorry, parliamentary procedure. I would like to amend the motion to include the increase of $8,418 for the fire department funding.
$8,418, is that right? The motion has been made to amend the town general fund budget, adding $8,418 for the fire department. Is there a second to that motion? I see your hand. I don't know your name, sir. Paul Adler. Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Rich Cogliano and Paul Adler to add $8,418 to the general fund budget for the fire department. Rich, you've spoken a couple of times, but if you would like to explain this again, I won't count that.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. As I said earlier, we looked at 4 categories for things that have had inflationary increases. Dispatching, the cost of being in Southwest New Hampshire District Fire Mutual Aid, which is our dispatch center, is the most significant at an increase over the last 8 years of $7,685. We also have an increase in Southern Vermont Cable, which, let's face it, I don't know if they're going to be around in another year, of $226 in the last 7 years. Green Mountain Power has gone up $767 in the last 7 years. On the good side, since we've switched over to propane at both our stations and we've renovated the center, our heating costs have gone down $259 in 7 years. So the total in just those 4 categories, dispatching, power, cable and internet, and heating, the total increase is $8,418. Now that's not an increase in the cost of gear. That's not an increase in the cost of equipment. That's not the increase in phones. That's just the increase or insurance actually. All of that we still have to fund. So we're not looking to be 100% funded. Our total budget, as I said, has been level funded since 2012. We pay $90,500 to operate our station, to operate our department. That means we have to raise 46% of our budget by fundraising. The same volunteers, several of us in the room that stood up earlier, that are going on calls, going to car accidents, going to fires and medical emergencies are the same ones that are flipping pancakes and writing fund drive letters. We get nothing. So we are asking to help us flip a few less pancakes, play a few less rounds of golf for our golf tournament, which is happening September 12th, so that we can stay viable and stay operational. That's all we're looking for, is just an incremental increase to cover some of our increasing costs over the last 7 years since we've been level funded.
The motion on the floor is to amend the main motion, the general fund budget, by adding $8,418 for the fire department. Louis, you had a comment you wanted to make?
Yeah, Louis White, thank you, Madam Moderator. I understand they're saying 46%. The town paid, we have a payment this year of $30,145.80 for the fire station that was built a couple years back. Another $71,952.30 for a fire engine that we purchased. So, and then on top of that, you've got the $49,500 that we gave them. And without the $49,500, we're at $102,098.10. And then you can add the $49,500 on top of that. I was really hoping we were going to work with the fire department a little closer than this, and to get to this point where where everybody was happy to, but we're already at a 12% increase this year, and to add this onto it, and then we're going to have another article for CEVEDS coming up, which is going to add even more to it if it's approved. So I'd really like to see people turn this motion down.
Geraldine, you wanted to add something?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Geraldine Wilson. So I'd just like to affirm the process that Louis, our Select Board Chair, followed this year of having each of the committees come and meet with the Select Board. It was really awesome, and the Fire Department as well. And I have to say that I am in great appreciation for our Fire Department and what they do. I would like to help support them so that it's not the same people out fighting the fires that are also flipping the pancakes. So I would encourage us all to really get involved in a lot of ways to support our fire department. And I'll say in terms of the process, I've been on the select board 5 years now. And this was the first year where the fire department really came and presented a budget, and I think it really reflects a shift in what Dummerston is, the town is organizing itself around in terms of a relationship between the town and the fire department. And I look forward to supporting that in whatever ways I can. I would say that the mistake, if you'll call it that, was that when the fire department came to present their numbers to us, they didn't give us any paper with things written down. It was all verbal. So then we were left as a select board to go back and write down what we heard. And so if there's a discrepancy that you're hearing in what Rich is saying they presented and what we're saying we heard, there very well could be. It's up to you, the voters of the town, what you do in terms of the amended motion that's on the floor. The typical protocol of your select board is to level fund things and then allow the town to say, yes, we're willing to pay more. We take it very seriously that we're spending our money, and so we don't take raises lightly. But I just want to end by saying that I really look forward to supporting the relationship between the town government and our respected fire department.
Harold, do you have a question on the motion on the floor, which is the amendment?
The amendment.
This is we're considering the amendment right now to add money to the general fund budget for the fire department.
I'm asking for a paper ballot on the amendment.
Okay. To have a paper ballot, we need 7 people who want that. This does not mean that discussion is over. We're not calling the question. But could I have you raise your hand if you support a paper ballot on this amendment to add $8,418 to the general fund for the fire department? I see more than 7 hands, so we will do a paper ballot. But more discussion on the amendment on the floor before we go there. I saw your hand, sir.
Thank you. Eric Lineback. I want to just make a comment as chairman of the Dummerston Energy Committee and note that the fire department has reached out to us several months ago about apparently their doors and their windows are quite old and the building is not very efficient. So I think it's germane to this discussion to point out that we should need to look at ways to reduce their operating costs. I'm not sure how much, new windows and doors and insulation might do, and of course there would be a cost to that as well, capital cost. And I just want to encourage you and your fellow firefighters to, we did send a lighting report. We went over there and did a review and costed stuff out, sent that report. Haven't heard anything back from you yet. We want to encourage you to interact with us and help us help you. So, thank you.
We're discussing an important matter, but I'm going to interrupt it for a moment for something potentially even more important, and that is that the kitchen needs to know how many people are going to be having lunch here today by 11 o'clock, which is very shortly. So kitchen staff, can you come out and look at this number of hands? Michael, can you knock on the door and ask them to please come out? Thank you. Kitchen, can you come out and look at our raised hands? Now, raise your hands if you're staying for lunch. What do you think, Larry? Tell us when we can put our hands down. So you have enough sandwiches, but not too many. Sounds good. Thank you. So we are still talking about the motion on the floor, which is to amend the general fund budget by a total of $8,418, adding that for the fire department. Molly, would you like to speak to that amendment?
Hi, I'm Molly Stoner. My question is about the history of this sort of binary funding. I'm curious, I don't see fire department funding as optional, so I feel a little bit of trepidation about part of it being raised privately and by the workers who are busy doing the work. So I just don't know the history, and I'm curious if anyone can speak to that. And then this probably isn't Robert's rules, but I'm interested in exploring that question of, is this the best way to move forward at another time?
Is there anyone who could speak to Molly's question about a binary relationship and us funding the fire department? Different towns do it differently. If you'd like to specifically answer the question, Rich, go ahead.
Thank you. Sorry I'm taking up so much time. So to answer your question about why two different funding sources, every town is different. Our town, we choose to have an independent volunteer fire department. We are not a town department. Brattleboro is a town department. Putney is a town department with an association. So every town is a little bit different. Ours really was a bunch of neighbors that got started in 1950 that got together and said, hey, we need a fire department here in town. So they fundraised, they did all that work themselves. They built the trucks back then, back when you could get away with things like that. Now we have laws that say you can't do that. So part of it is in the 80s or so, we started saying, look, there's a lot more costs to this than what volunteers can do and fundraise. So we asked the town for funding. Starting then, the town started buying our trucks on a 7 or 8 year cycle. So that's where this binary process came in, is that to run a fire department is expensive. And to 100% independently fundraise it is very, very difficult. So we asked the town for help decades ago, and here we are today. So, does that answer? Thank you.
Any further discussion on the question? Greg?
Thank you. I'm Greg Brown. I have a question, Madam Moderator, and I guess it's also a concern. At some point in the future, the fire department, bless their hearts, and I have no complaint about the fire department and what they do, except that you can't build a budget in somebody's head and just leave it there. You got to put it on a piece of paper. Otherwise, we run the risk of running into the same kinds of problems that we're talking about now. How much is the addition that you want to hear or that you want to have to the budget? Oh, by the way, it was never written down, and so there's some confusion about how much the amount really is. It's just not a very good way to run a railroad. And so I would hope in the future that the fire department and the select board would have good communications. And apparently this year was a good step in the right direction. I applaud that. But you just can't go on unless you put some stuff on paper, so that there's no question about what the amount is, what it's for, what the timing is, and what have you. Thank you.
Geraldine, did you want to respond to that? Okay. Anything else? Yes, Eric.
Eric Kruger. So this body, Madam Moderator, has a long history of people proposing large changes to the general budget and long discussions of them. And so I'm just proposing, it's not an official proposal, I'm mentioning the possibility that perhaps we would consider some less than $8,418 in this cycle, with the caveat that perhaps there could be greater coordination between the fire department and the select board to achieve the funding level that they are seeking in subsequent budgets, because I agree it is a pretty big number to spring on the day of the meeting.
So Eric, I'm hearing you say maybe we want to consider an amount smaller than $8,418, is that right? But you have not given an amount. There's a complicated thing that we can do, and I forget the name of it, but it's where we started an amount that's low and keep raising it until we don't have a majority saying yes to that amount anymore. I wonder if that's something that you want to propose.
I'll respond to that. Because we've already had a paper ballot called for this amendment, I don't see that as feasible. I will leave it up to somebody else to amend their amendment or to amend the amendment. All I'm suggesting is we can talk about this for another 30 minutes. We have a short meeting this year. But if that number was less than 8,400 on the day of the town meeting, I think it might be palpable to more people. So I'm trying to support the fire department in their intent and get them some money without seeing it shot down because we were given a big number.
Mm-hmm. Eric, we can amend the amendment. And having a paper ballot on the original amendment does not preclude us from doing that. So I'm going to rule, but I invite dissent, that we will start by doing a voice vote at $2,000 and moving up until we no longer have a majority. And yes, Paul has a point of order. Sadie, could you bring the mic?
Madam Moderator, I don't think that's an appropriate way to do this. And I don't think the moderator should be directing the body as to which way to approach the solution to this problem. I think it belongs with the body to make that decision.
Yes, it is the moderator's prerogative to rule, but it is the body's prerogative to overrule the moderator. I'm going to take a 45-second break to look at my cheat sheets here and make sure that what I'm proposing we do is the right way to do this. Bev, I see you have a comment in the back. Do you want to go ahead?
You know, Dennis and I have been loyal supporters of the fire department for many, many years. And it's a very important thing. And since the fire department is a self-supporter and the town is supporting them, I think it would really be wise to encourage the fire department to work more closely with the select board in preparing financial information. And it would be really lovely. I can tell you from volunteering with fundraisers that it's a very, it brings the community together. It makes you feel like you belong to something. And I'd really encourage community participation in fire department fundraisers.
Suzanne in the back.
To me, actually, the number seems fairly small in the overall budget and in what was asked for by the fire department, whichever version you're looking at. And I appreciate the processes, the changes in the process and the things that Geraldine outlined and where the glitches might have been. And I'd like to suggest, I don't know if this is appropriate with this amendment, that we table the amendment and really just be more careful next year and just vote the straight amount that we got from the process that was the new improved process this year, and not consider this any longer, this added for 20, what is it, 8,000 plus.
Thank you, Suzanne. Louis, if you have a point of information, otherwise you've already spoken to this a couple of times. No? Okay.
I'm going to call the question, but...
Anybody can call the question. Okay.
I'll call the question then.
And I'm going to back up a sec. So I've found this, it's filling in the blanks, but the reality is that I have not had a specific motion to do this. I'm looking at you, Eric. And other comments have been made up here that I think are useful. So I'm going to ask the body, would you like to vote on the amendment that's on the floor, which carries a figure of $8,418? And if we do vote on that, we'll do it by paper ballot. So my question to you is, do you want to vote yes? Let's just end this discussion and go ahead and vote on the amendment by paper ballot? Or do you want to not call the question and consider looking at this process of filling in the blanks, where we look at where the body might like to approve a smaller number to then vote on by paper ballot? Is this a point of order, Jody? Okay, Jody?
Jody Normadeau. Isn't calling the question a non-debatable question, and we just have to vote on that or not?
Yes, and I'm essentially asking us to do that. If you vote to end discussion, then that's calling the question, and if you vote not to end discussion, instead to do filling in the blanks, we can do that. So, there's kind of two things. The question has been called. Harold, you're right. Okay, let's go that route. Good point. Who seconded? Eric Kruger seconded. Louis called the question. Eric seconded. Okay, we'll go that route because you're right, that's not a debatable motion. Okay, so if you would like to end this discussion and go ahead to the paper ballot, voting on the figure of $8,418, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed to calling the question, those who want to continue discussion, signify by saying no. No. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The question is called. So, for a paper ballot, those whose last names...
Point of order?
Yes.
I don't believe Harold called the paper ballot for this motion. He called it for the other vote. For the original. For the original.
Not for the amendment.
He did not ask for a paper ballot for the amendment.
Harold, you called for a paper ballot on the general fund approval? Not...
I called the paper ballot at the time the $8,000 was asked to be increased, and it's to be voted on that article of increasing it, the budget.
Yes.
By 8,000.
That's what I understood you to say. Thank you, Harold. So we're going to do a paper ballot on the amendment on the floor. What you're voting on is, shall we add $8,418 to the general fund budget for the fire department? If you want to do that, you're going to write yes. If you want the budget to stay at it as it is with no increase for the fire department, vote no. Those whose last names begin with A through K come to this table. Those with last names starting with L to Z to this table. Who's got the books?
It's A through L.
L, okay. A through L at the first table, A through L, and M through Z at the second table, M through Z. Vote yes if you want the increase for the fire department. Please take your seats. We have the results of your vote. Please take your seats. We have the results of your vote. There were 147 votes. 77 voted yes to add the money. 70 voted no. So the amendment passes, and $8,418 has been added to the general fund budget for the fire department. That brings us back to the main motion on the floor, which is Article 8. Charlotte, can you give me new numbers? Now that the motion has been amended, I'm thinking we have a budget of, somebody got their calculator out? Can you add $486,492 to $8,418? I think that's $494,910. Okay. And how much of that needs to be raised by taxes? We need to add $319,410 plus $8,418. And that looks like $327,828. Is that correct? Yes? All right. Thanks to the Dummerston School for those lifelong citizens who learn their math here. So, Article 8 has been amended. The question on the floor now is, will we approve total general fund expenditures of $494,910, of which $327,828 shall be raised by taxes, and $167,082 by non-tax revenues for the period of July 1st, 2020 to June 30th, 2021. Is there further discussion on the main motion regarding the entire general fund budget? Are you ready for the question? Looks like you are. All in favor of the motion on the floor, which I will repeat, is to approve total general fund expenditures of $494,910, of which $327,828 shall be raised by taxes and $167,082 by non-tax revenues for the period of July 1st, 2020 to June 30th, 2021. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have passed your budget. Thank you. It is 11:39, and I see 4 legislators here. So we're going to take a break from articles and invite our legislators to come speak. I'll be positively rude and say that people will probably stop listening at noon when it's lunchtime. So however you want to divide up your time, be our guests.
Hello, Dummerston. It's good to be home. Thank you for giving us a few moments of your time to talk with you. I'll try to keep it as quick as I can because it sounds like lunch is right around the corner. This week that we have off, it's really nice because not only do I get a chance to catch up on all the home improvement projects, but it gives me a chance to actually sit down and talk with folks without feeling any sort of rush or anything like that. So, all your legislators are home for the next week, and feel free to reach out to us if you want to talk, and we're here for you. And I wanted to start off by just mentioning that the Wyndham delegation is down by one member. The former representative from Rockingham, Matthew Trieber, recently resigned, as many of you probably know. And, you know, over the last year and a half, Matt became a really good friend of mine. And he had this way of criticizing just about every single piece of legislation. But it was good in a way, because he really knew how to analyze things. And, you know, no law is perfect, but he helped bring them as close to perfect as possible. So he's definitely missed. And I also wanted to share just a quick story about last year, my first year as a freshman legislator. And, you know, I had a few assumptions about how things happened in the State House, just like all the other freshmen did. And one of the assumptions that I had was that in the General Assembly, you have Democrats sitting on one side and you'll have Republicans sitting on the other. That was just how I figured they did it, because that's how they did it in Congress. And so tradition dictates that new legislators get their seats assigned to them, whereas returning legislators pick their own seats or go back to their old seats. So on the first day I had my seat assigned to me, I went and I sat down and I looked around me and I realized I didn't recognize anybody, and that's because I was sitting right in the middle of the Republican caucus. So I thought to myself, I was like, did I make a mistake here, or did somebody else make a mistake? What's going on? And ultimately I found out that it was not a mistake, and that in our State House, legislators get mixed up regardless of party affiliation. And even though I was a bit nervous at first, I'm actually very glad that it's set up that way. The reason being that over the last year and a half, I've had some of the liveliest debates and conversations with my friends from across the aisle. I challenge them and they challenge me, and all of us together are able to think about the different perspectives that we bring to the table. And what is additionally important is that all these conversations are always carried out with mutual respect and honesty. We occasionally make fun of each other, but overall we're actually very respectful, and it's a trait in our State House that makes me especially proud to be a legislator here. And I also think it's reflective of the broader picture, in that right here in communities like Dummerston, we may have a diverse array of opinions on how things should be done, but we generally engage in our conversations with respect and honesty. And I'm fully confident that tradition will continue into the future. Now, moving on from that, I just want to give you folks a brief rundown of some of the pieces of legislation that we've been working on. So as you may know, the Global Warming Solutions Act passed with a strong showing of tripartisan support. Some of my thoughts related to this are that while there's a sense of immediacy in how urgently we have to act regarding climate change, it's also important to maintain some sense of hope that we'll have a clean future for the next generation of Vermonters. And one of the indicators of hope that I witnessed on the floor was the general tripartisan agreement among all the majority of legislators that climate change is real, and that it will first affect our farmers as well as folks living in poverty in this state. And so this is a bill that will allow Vermonters to hold the government accountable through the judiciary for its climate emission goals, while also creating a plan that includes strategies and programs that will aid in addressing climate change and building resilience. And just several days ago, the Cannabis Tax and Regulate bill also passed in the House. And the reality that we all know is that marijuana has been legal for years, but there is zero regulation. The lack of regulation creates a variety of challenges, both as it relates to legality, safety, and consumption. The lack of regulation also ensures that all the money that people are spending on cannabis is going into the black market. And I will be happy to support legislation that prevents money from going to folks who may also be trafficking other drugs in our state. Now, the role I played in this legislation was directly related to highway safety. You know, what I told people is that I don't like any drugs whatsoever, so I know I'm not very fun at parties, but I do care a lot about highway safety. So, as a former trooper and drug recognition expert, I weighed in on the logistics and usefulness of the training and helped create provisions that would allow for more training for police to identify drug-impaired drivers. Overall, I believe this is a bill that will keep recreational users safe from potentially tainted black market products. It will bolster our tourism economy, and the licensing options that are available will provide farmers with an additional moneymaker if they choose to go that route. And the other topic that I wanted to talk about is something that's a bit more local related. As we've all heard, we've heard about the car break-ins that have been happening, especially in Brattleboro, and I know we've had a number of car break-ins here in Dummerston. So Currently, there is a strange loophole in Vermont law where a person can enter another person's vehicle without their consent, and it's not a crime. So right now, if anyone left their car unlocked, I can go into the parking lot, take a nap in your back seat, rummage around through your documents, or just hang out, and it's not a crime. And so I want to say that I fully support restorative justice. I support closing that constant pipeline to prison, but I do believe that people have an expectation of privacy for their vehicles, and they also have an expectation that they'll be safe if that privacy is violated. So I have started working on legislation to make it unlawful to to intentionally enter another person's vehicle without their consent. There's no jail time attached to this because it is a big problem, because we don't want to increase our prison population, but I do believe that police should have a way to intervene when people are rummaging around through your vehicle. So, like I said, I'm going to keep it quick, and I'm going to pass the mic off to my district mate, Mike Merwicki, and I do just want to say that it's been a true honor and privilege to serve all of you in Montpelier, and if you have any questions, I'll be around for the rest of the week. So, thank you.
It's almost afternoon, so I'll say good afternoon. And I know that we are standing between you and the best lunch around, so we'll try and be brief. Thanks for the opportunity, Cindy. Thanks for offering us a break here, and to everyone here. It is great to be back home here. When I'm up in the north, I refer to home as the Southeast Kingdom. And it gets people's attention. And somebody from the Northeast Kingdom said, "How could you do that?" I said, well, Governor Aiken of Putney is the person who coined the term, so being from Putney, I think we can appropriate a little bit there. We're at the point in the session, mid-session, we're almost at what we call crossover, and that's when bills have to get from one side, either the House to the Senate or vice versa. So it's a busy time. We've been working on a lot of things. I especially want to affirm what Nader said about the Global Warming Solutions Act. I think what we do, we have to balance the needs of today and the future. And as a new grandfather, my daughter gave birth a year ago, it is so much more essential for us to make sure they have a future. When we go camping, we're told, leave it cleaner than you found it, and we certainly want to do that with how we treat the earth. You know, there's an old saying, the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, and the second best time is right now. And it might have been good if 20 years ago we did some of these actions, but we didn't. So now is the best time to do it. And we're looking forward to using the structure of the Global Warming Solutions Act. It brings things together with a coherent plan, and then it keeps us on top of things because there's structures in there where citizens can have cause to action. There's a lot of bills that get drafted. We're not going to go over all of them, but we do have a full report on our website, wyndham4.net, and then on the legislative website, if you want to get more details and dive into the weeds there. One of the things I want to mention before closing, though, or there's just two quick things. We've gotten a lot of questions about how secure are Vermont elections. Jeanette chairs Senate government operations. I sit on House government operations. This is a really important question, and we can feel good about the work our Secretary of State, Jim Kondos, has done in this area. He has assured us that they're taking every precaution they can so there's not a cyber leak, but the bottom line is we have paper here in Vermont. And yeah, a lot of states wish they did now. And I hope as we go across, we realize across the nation that this is a good thing to do. Lastly, I want to hold up a concern many of us are looking at. There were some headlines early this year about the Brattleboro retreat, that they're having some challenges, some money challenges. And the reality is their situation is not much different than most other rural hospitals in Vermont and across the country. The reality is the cost of providing these services isn't matched by what they're getting from the government and insurance companies, and we're going to have to reckon with this. The good news about that is our delegation, in terms of the retreat, really came together and did some good work working together, and that's one of the things I want to highlight. We're busy working, and we're working on your behalf. The retreat is an essential piece of our mental health system, but it's also the biggest employer in the county, over 800 jobs. Now, there's a whole other conversation people might want to have about what's happening there in terms of quality, what's happening for the workers, but the reality is this is a piece that we need to make sure continues. And as a delegation, we're set. We're going to work and keep doing that. I'm going to hand it off now to Senator Ballant, and thank you again. I appreciate the opportunity to serve you and to serve with these good people. So thank you.
Hello. So those of you who don't know me, I am Senator Rebecca Ballant. I am one of your 2 senators for Windham County. I live in Brattleboro, and I am the majority leader in the Senate. And before I get started on my remarks about my work, I wanted to just let you know of an important phone number. I know many of us in Vermont think of ourselves as global citizens. I know many of us travel. And the Vermont Department of Health last night put out a number that you can call if you've been traveling outside of the country and you wonder if you may have been exposed to coronavirus. The number is 802-863-7240. And I mention it because the health department lab now has the test for the virus. Currently, nobody in Vermont has been diagnosed with coronavirus, but as of last night, there was a case in Hanover, and so it's just a matter of time. So if you have been traveling, you might want to call that number and just find out if you should be taking other precautions. I was trying to talk about it with my kids last night, and they said, well, if we don't have any cases in Vermont, why are we worried about this? It takes many weeks to know if you've been exposed, and we have many folks who are at risk. I have a very big elderly population here in Windham County, and I'm very concerned about that. So if you could do that, that would be a great help to your fellow citizens. The other thing I wanted to say is I usually go to other town meetings today because Senator White and I split it up, and I do a bunch of meetings and she does a bunch of meetings, but I realized I hadn't been to Dummerston Town Meeting ever since I've been elected, and I was married in Dummerston, and I have a special place in my heart for the Grange, so I'm very happy to be here with you to tell you a little bit about my work. I sit on economic development and finance in the Senate, and in Economic Development Committee for the last few years, we've really been focused on housing. And in the last biennium, we passed the largest infrastructure investment in housing that the state of Vermont had seen in over a decade, and we were able to leverage over $100 million of investments, creating 800 new housing units, which is great, and there's still a lot more to do. We went back to the treasurer this year to say, would it be possible for us to leverage another bond? She said that she was concerned about our debt ratio and that was not going to be possible for us. So we're looking at other avenues. And the one thing that I wanted to tell you about is we're looking particularly at the issue of tax increment financing. And I won't bore you with the details, but I will tell you this. In the past, larger towns and cities in Vermont have been able to participate in our TIF program, which allows them to get supports from the state to leverage money to do infrastructure upgrades in their towns and cities. And what I mean by that is water and sewer that will allow you to build more housing units or more businesses. And these haven't been available for smaller towns. So we're looking at creating what we're calling a mini TIF program so that Dummerston and maybe Putney and Townsend and Jamaica might be able to make these investments that is not possible just on the resident tax base. So stay tuned for that. The other work that I'm very proud of that has happened in the last few weeks is the work that we've done in the Finance Committee on pharmaceutical pricing. And I'm very proud to be a co-sponsor on a bill that caps the amount of money that you will pay out of pocket for insulin. We heard some of the most distressing testimony I've ever heard in my life as a legislator, where Vermonters were coming to our committee saying that they were paying $1,600 a month to be able to afford their insulin. And I don't know how many of you know about the history of insulin, but the patent for insulin was sold for $1 to the University of Toronto. $1. because the doctor who invented it said no one should ever make money off of this. It is a life-saving drug. And now it's hundreds of dollars. The price has tripled in the past decade. And what we heard is that so many Vermonters are putting off buying their insulin, they're making it stretch or trying to make it stress, and they're getting very, very sick. So the bill passed unanimously in the Senate. It caps the price at $100 for folks who need insulin, regardless of how many medications they need. Now, I can tell you the Committee on Finance and the rest of the Senate wishes that it could be even cheaper than that, because even $100 is a lot for many Vermonters. But it is unconscionable the amount of money that pharmaceutical companies are making for the price of insulin right now. So I'm hoping that my colleagues in the House will also have as much luck as we had in the Senate with getting it passed. The other thing that I wanted to tell you about is a bill that I co-sponsored regarding student loans and student loan debt and the servicers that service these loans. So the average borrower debt right now for a student in Vermont going to college is about $31,000. That's a $200 payment a month for 13 years. That means they're not investing in a home, they're not investing in a car or other important, or having a family. And so what the Department of Financial Regulation in Vermont said, there's not a whole lot right now that we can do as a state on the debt itself. We're going to continue to look at that issue, but we can go after the servicers that are making upwards of billions of dollars nationally on additional interest that our borrowers are paying by having them steered into loans with unfavorable terms. So again, unanimous bipartisan support in the Senate. We sent it over to the House. It will offer some relief to borrowers here in Vermont. And we're going to continue to look at affordability issues here in Vermont. The last thing I want to say is there are only 30 people in the state of Vermont that get to represent their constituents in the Senate, and I am one of them, and I love my job, and I'm grateful that I'm able to serve you in that way, and I very much appreciating having this time with you today. And Jeanette, I haven't left you much time before the mac and cheese, but Senator White, thank you.
So I guess I'll try to make this really fast so that you can get to lunch. And as Becca said, it is a true honor to be able to represent Dummerston and the rest of Windham County as we serve Vermont. It really is an honor. So I sit on the Judiciary Committee in the morning and Government Operations in the afternoon. In the Senate, we're on 2 committees. I'm just going to give you a little snapshot of some of the things we're working on. In Judiciary, 10 years ago, we were told that if we kept on the same trajectory for our prison population, we would have 2,700 people in prison by this year. That's a lot of people for a small state like ours. We invested in what was called justice reinvestment, and we have managed to change that curve a little bit. We now have 1,700. So we've not gone up like it was predicted. And this year we're investing in what we call justice reinvestment. I keep getting that wrong. Justice reinvestment 2. And our focus is on a couple things. And with all respect to Nodder about the new crime being created, we are looking at what really needs to be a crime, what should be unlawful and what shouldn't, and when people go afoul of the law or the rules and behavior, what are alternative ways of dealing with them other than sending them to prison? Because we know it costs $55,000 a year to keep someone in prison. For a man, it costs $75,000 a year to keep a woman in prison. We could send them to 4-year colleges for far less than that and get better results in most cases. So those are, we're also dealing with a lot of other issues, but that's a big one for us right now. In government operations, and I know that sounds like a really boring topic, but it deals with, as Mike said, elections, municipal issues, law enforcement, the military, the structure of government itself. And I will say just one more thing about elections. First of all, we're not doing anything to change elections this year. Our town clerks will be very happy about that. But one of the reasons that we have such a great and secure election system with a lot of integrity is because of our town clerks, because we don't have a centralized system. We have each town clerk manages the elections in their towns, and that is a huge advantage for us in Vermont. So thank you to the town clerks. So two other things that we're dealing with is we are what's called a Dillon state, which means that towns can only do what we in the state, in our wisdom, decide you can do. You can't do anything unless we give you permission to do it. Most states are not Dillon states, so they are allowed, their towns are allowed to do anything that isn't expressly prohibited by the state. We're trying to make some inroads into changing that, and what we have is we have a municipal limited, it's a pilot for limited self-governance for a number of towns in Vermont. And I was on the select board in Putney for 9 years, and I know that select boards, although we give them a lot of grief for what they don't do and some of the things that they do, they have about this much authority. We don't allow them to have much authority. So what this pilot would do is allow a certain number of towns in Vermont to apply and have a much more self-governance for their town to make decisions without having to come to the state and say, may we please put a stop sign here? So I hope that that passes. It passed the Senate last year, and we're hoping it passes again. And the other thing we're dealing with is our emergency management systems. They are in a crisis state, and we're looking at funding for them and credentialing and how we actually support them as part of the, they started out as part of the transportation system because they were thought just to be transporting people from one place to another, but they really are part of our healthcare system, and we need to acknowledge that and deal with them in a different way. I'll say one last thing. This is the year when the census starts, and it is absolutely important that everybody fill out those forms. When you get them, and I just heard this morning that it's going to come to you in the mail and it's going to be addressed to occupant. And what do we all do when we get something addressed to occupants? We throw it out. But it's absolutely important that you not do it. There is not a citizenship question on there, but if we get an undercount, it will affect billions of dollars coming in from the federal government, because when they give us money for all kinds of things, transportation, for our highways, for our Medicaid, for many, many, many things, it's based on our population. So it's absolutely important that everybody answer those surveys and convince your neighbors to answer them. And if you have friends in other parts of the state, convince them to answer it, because otherwise we stand to lose billions of dollars. So with that, I'll just say, look at our legislative website, and each committee has a page, and you can go on there, and not only do you can you see what the agenda is, but when somebody comes in and testifies, you can look at all the pieces of information and all the testimony that's given and all the new drafts for every bill. So it's a very useful and user-friendly site. So please visit it, and like Nader said, we'll be around this week. So thank you.
Lunch is almost ready, but not quite. Does anyone have a question for one of our legislators? Jody, I see you in the back. Do we have our microphone runners handy? Yes, we do. Thank you, Zadie.
Thank you, Zadie. I want to ask all the legislators to please keep their eye on this new UVM weighting study. Yes. I'm sure you know about it. It's very important to our areas of the town, we are not getting the money from the state that we need, because we've been, for 20 years, since, I've forgotten what the act was now, but we've been underpaid for our children in poverty and our, probably not the language children, but mainly the children in poverty. What's concerning to me is our Principals Association, our Superintendents Association, and those other people are trying to get you to drag your feet and not take it up. It needs to be taken up now. You will hear from all of us. I think, you know, Burlington usually rules the day. They probably don't want to change, but it's been a very good study. I think you need to approve that study and take care of it now. Thank you.
Yes, we agree.
First of all, I just want to bet as to who would have the first question today. Yeah. So Jody, thanks for highlighting that. And yes, it's something we want to take up. And I want to caution people, this is not simple. This is not easy. And there isn't a town in Vermont that isn't saying the same thing, including Burlington, who's been taking on 3 generations of refugees from different parts of the world. So this is a complex piece of changing our funding formula that we're going to do the work on, but it's not simple or easy.
Any other questions? I see right behind you, Sadie. Oh, okay, go ahead, Calvin. You can go first. Start with your name, please.
Hi. Those of you who know
Calvin,
me
sorry,
know
could you
that,
please start with your name? Thank you. Your name?
Oh, Calvin Farwell from Dummerston. And those of you who know me know that the topic of this question is, of course, climate change, which is the biggest issue facing all of us in the next couple of years. Specifically, I'm interested in what is happening to the so-called Transportation Climate Initiative, or TCI for short. Now, for those of you who don't know, this is a union of 12, 13, or 14, I'm not sure which, states, all in the Northeast and the Atlantic coast. It's in the formative phase right now. However, it is the people in Vermont who are working on this is the Agency of Natural Resources. That's part of the administration. The fact that this involves so many states, representing about 1/3 of the population of the United States, means that this is a big deal. And any thought that Vermont's so small that it doesn't have a voice that's not important anymore. If you're a group of 1/3 of the population of the country, then the proposals for cutting down on petroleum fuels in the transportation sector, that voice will be heard. Now, I'm wondering I don't know which of you is closest to this, but what I've heard is that the governor, even though his own agency of natural resources has been working like crazy on this, the governor is leaning against this. So I'm wondering what the legislators can do to turn the governor around.
Thank you, Calvin, for the question. I want to just turn the last sentence that you said around, because we are going to take the governor on TCI, but what we've heard from the governor's office is that he needs to hear from constituents that this is important to them. It's one thing if I go in a meeting with the governor and say the Senate is behind the TCI initiative, which we are, the caucus is behind it, and we will be forcing, in a way, his hand, because if we are part of a regional compact, but he does not sign on, we may be paying into the fund and not be getting anything back, and that's untenable. So we have a path in the Senate. I think Mike Mrowicki can probably talk to what's happening in the House, but what we've heard repeatedly from this governor is he does not feel like there is urgency among constituents on this issue. So I strongly encourage you to call the governor's office if the TCI initiative is something that's important to you. But we will do our part, absolutely.
Eric Kruger. This is maybe more of a minor point than the global climate issue that was already brought up, but I know it has an impact at the state level. I've been made aware that there's a real emphasis on bringing 5G service to our state and nationwide, and there is some question as to whether 5G and its multiple locations within the state is actually healthy. And I would go so far as to say I can't get 1 bar of LTE at my house. I'm not sure how 5G is going to help me. I know it's being pushed by the industry, and I know we're trying to get access to everyone in the state, but to me, it's a misplaced priority. We need to be able to get cell coverage to everyone first before we start putting very high power frequency transmitters throughout our communities. And I wonder if you can speak to that.
Sure. Thanks, Eric. I agree with you. And the reality is, most Vermonters don't have any bars. And that's because the companies that do this have put Vermont at the bottom of the list. We just don't have the population where they're going to make a lot of money. So we all want high-speed broadband, though, and the way to do it, I know there's a survey going on. There are efforts to do coordinated efforts and create municipal telecom utilities. If you look at the example of up in Norwich, Vermont, they have created a municipal utility that now serves 20 towns to the last mile. That's the only way you're going to do it. The companies out there are only going to stay in concentrated areas where they can make the most money. So the concerns about 5G are serious, and we're looking into them, but the reality is we're not going to see 5G, if ever, for a long, long time.
Our legislators are willing to stick around for a while to answer questions from individuals. So I'm going to suggest, since lunch is ready now and we have a lot to do this afternoon, that you approach them if you have more questions. Our town meeting is reconvened. I'd like to start by thanking the kitchen for another good lunch. Thank you. I also want to thank Peter, our tech guy in the corner in the hat over there. He's got this amazing display on his screen, all the microphones, and he's doing a great job. We have had problems in the past, but not since Peter's been here, last year and this year. Thank you, Peter. And finally, our mic runners are doing an amazing job, and their only pay is a donut, so a hand for them. Okay, we are on Article 9, page 67 of your town report if you have one. To see if the voters will approve total highway fund expenditures of $563,232, of which $435,632 shall be raised by taxes and $127,600 by non-tax revenues for the period of July 1, 2020 to June 30, 2021. Is there a motion?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I move that we approve total highway fund expenditures of $563,232, of which $435,632 shall be raised by taxes and $127,600 by non-tax revenues
for the period of July 1st, 2020 to June 30th, 2021.
Second.
Zeke seconds. It has been moved and seconded that we, approve total highway fund expenditures of $563,232, of which $435,632 shall be raised by taxes and $127,600 by non-tax revenues for the period of July 1, 2020 to June 30, 2021. I'll invite Lewis up to review the budget.
All right. The biggest number you guys are going to notice in there is the gravel pit bond payment. If you could all turn to page 20, if you have a book. If you're all there, I'll give you a second to find it. So, again, the biggest number everyone will see there is going to be gravel pit bond payment of $65,600. The select board, we decided to move this under highway. Last year's, when we had it approved at town meeting, was for the first payment to come out of the capital fund. So last year's payment came out of the capital fund, and then we decided after that to move it to the highway fund. And then if you go back up a couple, three numbers or 3 rows, crush and gravel. That should just say crush and gravel. It should not say ledge product on there. So if you could cross out the ledge product, that's just crushing of gravel. Last year it was $50,000. This year it's $17,500. Because we're doing it per year. And right now, we're getting 3,500 yards of material for that. With the roads that we have in town, we have a little over 50 miles. We should be getting 5,000 yards. But until we do the blasting in 5 years, we've asked Lee and the road crew to, see if they can make the 3,500 yards spread out a little further. So if you take that number, if you take the 17,500 and and the other number that you're going to have to put in here, and it's going to be, I think that maybe the next article, it's going to be $18,000 for blasting, and what we're going to do is ask for that also. But I just want to let you know that 17,500 is just for this year. That 18,000 will get us out 5 years, so we'll get back up to what we need for materials, the 5,000 yards. So let me just. So if you take the difference of those, you come up with $33,100. And when you go down to the bottom line on the highway fund, we're up $38,240. And so a lot of people are asking, we heard the 12% increase. If you take what we went up here, what you also have to take up is the $40,000 we did in the capital fund that you've approved. And so you add those two numbers, and then we're going to have to take up another $18,000 in the next article. And there's where you come up with your 12%. And then when we did the fire department, that's increased it even more. So we might be up to over 13, 14% now. If there's any questions, there's all the other numbers that you did. The wages, they didn't go up much. I really wish they'd gone up more. Personal expenses, that's the uniforms and CDL licenses. That went up $700. You go to contract services, that went up $1,000. That's, the $1,000 is for trees. There's more and more trees that we had to contract to have taken down instead of having our road crew do it. There's a highway structures engineering one that you guys will see that had 0 in it. We used to take that out of the structures fund. We decided to put that in the highway. And that's to, for a grant for the Leonard Road project we're gonna do. So that $800 is our portion. The grant will be for $8,000, so that's our 10%. Winter wages, they went up 2019. Sand went up $500. That is because we have the carpenter pit, and with the carpenter pit, that's our normal increase. So there's nothing we could do there right now. And then the street lights went up $200. And those are your increases right there. So if anybody wants to ask me more about the bond payment and the crushing of the gravel, or ask the moderator, who will then let me speak, I hope, go ahead.
Any questions, any comments? Joyce, wait for the microphone. Here they come.
Hi, Joyce Marcel. Comment. The 12% thing, that was me kind of screaming when I first heard it. And it's a bunch of numbers here, there, and I'm just not that good with numbers. So you say we add this to that, and it seems to me that we come to you expecting to be level funded, and 12% is so not level funded that I thought maybe we should have started our discussion with that and then worked our way down, because now it's a nickel dime here, and I'm hopelessly confused, but I still don't want to pay 12% more next year in taxes unless everybody in town is earning more money except me, in which case I'll shut up.
Well, Joyce, I'm with you. I don't like to see any increase. I like to see decreases. I think everybody knows that about me. But last year, the town, we did vote to go into this pit with the town of Putney, and this bond payment of $65,600 is a real number that we have to pay. And I know I'm not going to see, well, I might see the benefits of it, because 25 years out, this is really going to show. So it's thinking of the future of the town of Dummerston, really, a lot of it. We will see it when we hit the sand. So it won't be 25 years before we actually see, reap some of the benefits of this.
Yes, Paul.
Thank you. Paul Normandeau, Dummerston. Can you help me out on page 20 on the Highway Fund under actual FY19? If you take the difference between the budget, this is on the expenditure side, if you take the difference between the budget FY19 and the actual FY19, it looks like a little over $50,000 surplus there. Now, if you flip the page, wait a minute, I need to find the revenue side. Oh, if you go to page 17, and you look at the highway fund under the revenue side, the budget in FY19 was 528, and the actual revenues were 540. And that looks like a $12,000 increase. So if you take those two items, what happened to the surplus? Did it get transferred to this year, last year, next year? It seemed like that would be a big help if those are real surpluses in our tax situation that Joyce was talking about.
I guess what I'm oh, sorry.
No, do you want to answer, or shall we ask Charlotte to answer as treasurer?
Okay.
By state statute, all surpluses from the highway fund need to go to the following year and are not held for 2 years like we've been doing it. If you look on page 12, the fund balance for this year was $62,000. That's what we had left over for the highway fund. But that will be used in this year's budget.
It'll be used in this year's budget.
Used in this year's budget.
So that will lower the anticipated 12% increase, is that right? Or
Well, we are not to use that to offset the following year like we've been doing and like we do the surplus for the general fund. So it allows the road crew to have some more flexibility, like we didn't use. Lee was able to combine several retreatments, several paving jobs into one bigger job using this surplus. So it's already been voted for last year. It was approved. And the surplus will be used in this year's budget.
but why doesn't it reduce if it's used in this? You're saying this year, the current year that we're in.
This current year's budget, instead of being held over to offset next year's budget.
Yeah, my recollection was they used to not apply to the immediate following year. They used to apply to the subsequent year, which would have been this year, the next year.
But state statute says that it has to, only the highway fund, that money has to be applied to the following year.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. Any other questions? The motion on the floor is to approve total highway fund expenditures of $563,232, of which $435,632 shall be raised by taxes and $127,600 by non-tax revenues for the period of July 1, 2020 to June 30, 2021. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and the article passes. Article 10, to see if the voters will establish a highway blasting and ledge crushing reserve fund pursuant to the provisions of Title 24, Section 2804A. Is there a motion?
Madam Moderator, I move that we establish a highway blasting and ledge crushing reserve fund pursuant to the provisions of Title 24, Section 2804A.
Lewis seconds. Terry made the motion. It has been moved and seconded that we establish a highway blasting and ledge crushing reserve fund pursuant to the provisions of Title 24, Section 2804A. Who would like to explain this? Terry?
Now that Putney and Dummerston own this gravel pit together, it was voted last year, we own it. We're going to have to be blasting in 5 years. This is just to allow us to establish the fund. The next article will be about the money, but we don't have a fund yet. We need your permission to get one.
Any questions, comments on this article? Yes, Ed.
Thank you. Ed Anthes. Could you clarify for me, is this just blasting in the pit or is it blasting on roadways?
Lewis.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. That is just in the pit.
Any other questions or comments? Are you ready for the question? It has been moved and seconded that we establish a highway blasting and ledge crushing reserve fund pursuant to the provisions of Title 24, Section 2804A. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed, say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. And now Article 11, which will fund the reserve you just created. Article 11, to see if the voters will raise the sum of $18,000 through taxes and appropriate said amount to the Highway Blasting and Ledge Crushing Reserve Fund for future blasting and crushing. Is there a motion?
Madam Moderator, I move that we raise the sum of $18,000 through taxes and appropriate said amount to the Highway Blasting and Ledge Crushing Reserve Fund for future blasting and crushing.
Second that.
Lewis seconds. We've got a real rhythm going here. Okay. It has been moved and seconded that we raise the sum of $18,000 through taxes and appropriate said amount to the Highway Blasting and Ledge Crushing Reserve Fund for future blasting and crushing. Are there any questions? Paul. Sorry, guys. Over here, Paul.
Thanks. Paul Normando. I'm just curious, what is the goal of the fund? Are you planning on doing $18,000 a year for the next 5 years, which would make a $90,000 fund? And if so, how do you expect to, how much is it going to cost per year going forward for the blasting that will be taken out of the fund?
Terry, do you want to answer that? Lewis?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Oh, sure.
Lee Chamberlain. Yes, the goal is to have, like Lewis said, 5,000 yards of gravel for the 50 miles of road. So this is the bank run would be 3,500. This $18,000 would actually crush 1,500 yards. So yes, we're looking to add to that every year. And in the 5th year, Putney and us will blast the ledge. The reason we have the fund, so we do it on the 5th year, we get a better price for blasting rather than doing it yearly.
Sorry, Paul. Anybody else have a question or a concern? Paul, you'd like a second time? Does anyone else want to speak first to this question? Okay, go ahead, Paul.
I just wanted to follow up on Lee's answer, and perhaps he could expand on it. It's just that how many yards will we get for $90,000, and how many years will that last?
Lee Chamberlain. That's 1,500 a year, so times the 5. So that'd be 3,000 with Putney and us going in per year. So that'd be 15,000 yards of ledge that we will blast in 5 years, or we're hoping to.
And Dummerston gets half that.
And Dummerston gets half of it, right? And then that will last for the 5 years, and then we have to do it all over again. We'll save up for another 5 years, blast another. When we bought the pit, this was all in the spreadsheet, and it to show the rate of return on the gravel pit. So we knew that we'd be paying a little more now, but right, when we get out of Carpenter Pit, move to there, our savings will be a little bit bigger. In 25 years, then we'll outright own it. It's for the next generation.
Don't we all? Any other questions on the motion on the floor? Okay, the question before you is, it's been moved and seconded that we raise the sum of $18,000 through taxes and and appropriate said amount to the Highway Blasting and Ledge Crushing Reserve Fund for future blasting and crushing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. And there's just got to be a lot of little kids out there who are going to love the name of this fund, blasting and crushing. That'd be great. All right, Article 12, to see if the voters will vote to authorize the following capital expenditures in the current fiscal year, 2019-2020. $960 additional cost of painting the exterior of the town office building, $750 to strip and wax the town office flooring, and $1,500 for the attic cleanup and to pay for said expenditures from the capital fund's unexpended monies from the heat pump cost savings. And I believe that heat pump was in the town office. Is that right? Okay. Is there a motion?
Yes, Madam Moderator, thank you. I move that we authorize the following capital expenditures in the current fiscal year 2019-2020. $960 additional cost of painting the exterior of the town office building, $750 to strip and wax the town office flooring, and $1,500 for the attic cleanup, and to pay for said expenditures from the capital fund's unexpended monies from the heat pump cost savings.
Geraldine moved and Lewis seconded. It has been moved and seconded that we authorize the following capital expenditures in the current fiscal year and to pay for said expenditures from the capital fund's unexpended monies from the heat pump cost savings. Any questions on this? Yes.
Hello, Maeve Jenks. I had thought of this last year, but was just too nervous to say anything, so bear with me. I was wondering if we might be willing to get a new sign. I feel like it was talked about, maybe.
I'm sorry.
A new sign for our town office. We're doing all these upgrades to make it look nice. And while I love the idea of our sunburnt wooden sign, it's beautiful, it's really hard to read. And I thought maybe while we are putting this in our budget to make the updates to our town office that's needed, maybe we could also get an updated sign to show the pride that we have in the building that we're putting money into. That's all. I don't know an amount. What does that cost?
Maeve isn't sure what the amount is, and I'm guessing that after the heat pump went in, you had a specific sum of money, and is that specific sum that was left over used in its entirety? There's extra money left over. Okay. So, Maeve, I wonder if you'd like to make a motion. We'll call it an advisory motion that we would encourage the select board to purchase a new town office sign.
I will make an advisory motion that we encourage the select board to use the leftover money to improve our town office sign. Good.
Is there a second to Maeve's motion? I saw a hand over there. What's your name, sir? Maeve James.
Michael Silverman.
Thank you,
I'll
Michael.
second the motion.
Michael Silberman wants to find his way to work, I think. Is that right? He made the second. Michael is our zoning administrator, if I remember correctly, so I'm teasing him. No? Lister, sorry, thank you. Sorry about that. So there is an amendment that has been moved for Article 12. It's an advisory motion to add to this article that we encourage the select board to purchase a new town office sign. Is there any question or comment about the amendment that's on the floor regarding a new sign? Looks like you're ready to vote on the amendment. So the motion on the floor is to advise the select board, encouraging them to buy a new sign for the town office. If you vote yes, you want the sign. If you don't want a new sign, vote no. All in favor of advising a new sign signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Good job, Maeve. The select board is encouraged to use some of this leftover money to buy a new town office sign. So now we're back to the main motion, which now I would read as, I move that it has been moved and seconded to authorize the following capital expenditures in the current fiscal year, 2019-2020. $960 additional cost of paint in the exterior of the town office building, $750 to strip and wax the town office flooring, and $1,500 for the attic cleanup, and encouraging the select board to buy a new town office sign and to pay for said expenditures from the capital fund's unexpended monies from the heat pump cost savings. Any further discussion? Paul, your hand is up. Can you raise your hand so the mic runner knows where to go? Thank you.
Hi, Paul Normando again. Much as I felt that the gravel pit payment should be in the capital fund, I feel that these are not capital items and should be in the operating fund. I just hate to see the capital fund nickeled and dimed to death for items that should be part of general operations.
The select board is interrogated.
This would be using funds that were voted on last year, but not spent because we got a better deal on the heat pump. That's where the money is. You gotta go where the money is sometimes.
So Zeke is saying that this is leftover money from a capital purchase. Paul prefers to see it come out of operating. He doesn't see these as capital expenses. I have not heard a motion. Louis, do you want to say more?
Yeah, I'd just like to add, excuse me, Madam Moderator, Louis White. I just wanted to expand on that a little bit, Paul. We want to do this for this year, so if we went and did it, it would be on the next year's, because the painting, we had $5,000 budgeted for the road crew to do it. They weren't able to do it, so we put it out to bid, found that it was going to be $900 more, so $5,900, and that's why we did it there. And trying to get this, we've got bat problems up in the upstairs, so we want to get it done as soon as possible and not have to wait until after June to do that. That's another reason why we did this, and the money was there on the savings.
Any other questions, comments? Yes.
My name is Paul Adler. I somewhat agree with Paul. Why can't the money be transferred so that it comes under the appropriate line?
So Paul, you're suggesting that the money be transferred from the capital fund to the operating fund in order for the expenses to come out of the operating fund. You know, I'm not going to accept that as a motion because the money was originally voted for capital funds, and I think you could argue that these are all improvements to our capital property. But I welcome anyone to challenge me if you feel like we ought to go with that. Susan Dagler in the back.
Susan Dagler. I agree entirely with what Paul said. I think these are maintenance items, not capital improvements. Capital improvements are bigger things like a roof or new siding. And I think that things like this should be paid for from regular operating budget, and that when there is money left in the capital fund from something that came in under what was approved, I think it should stay in the capital fund for future capital expenses. We're buying a new payloader this year. If instead of $150,000, we spend $145,000, are we going to be nickel and diming that extra $5,000 next year? That's my feeling on it. Thank you.
Down front, Chuck Fish.
We have here today Ruth Hoffman,
who worked for the IRS for many years.
You mean the woman with the arm across her face?
The woman with the arm across her face, but a big smile on her face. And she's an expert on what can be called a capital expenditure. So we might see if she has any light to shed. I would have agreed with Paul and Susan, but I think Ruth has another slant on it, which may just complicate things enormously.
Ruth, it sounds like you're being interrogated. Do you choose to respond?
Okay, I'm Ruth Hoffman. I'm also one of your town auditors.
Can you put it's on? It just needs to be near your mouth, Ruth.
Okay,
Yes.
better? Okay, I would split the difference here. We already have the complete building outside painting as a capital item, and I think that is a capital item because it extends the useful life of our building. The attic and the floor are not in our capital plan, and I would agree with Paul that we shouldn't take capital money for operating expenses, and we can't transfer capital money to operating expenses. They're separate categories, and I just wanted to point out, if people look in their booklet, in the first 12 pages, you can see all our special funds and what came in last year and what went out, and it gives you a better picture of our capital fund. So as auditors, we worked hard to make sure those reports are available, and you can see what the total capital fund actually is, what we spent last year, what we took in, and what's still in the capital fund. So that's my personal opinion.
So Ruth, tell me if I have this right. You see the additional cost of painting the exterior as a capital purchase, but you do not see the flooring and the attic cleanup as a capital purchase. What about the sign out front?
I don't know what the sign costs. There's also a general rule that, depending on the expense, certain expenses are always a current operating expense if they're less than maybe $1,000. I'm not sure on that number. So I don't know about the sign.
Thank you. Charlotte, do we have a number over which something is considered a capital expense? Okay. So, Paul, do you feel like you made a motion? Or do you want to make a motion? Do you want to make a motion that, for example, we only take the $960 out of the capital fund? And if
we're going to pay for it one way or the other, but my reaction is that this should not be standard practice in terms of taking operating items and sticking them in the capital fund just because it's convenient and that's where the money is.
Paul, I'm sorry, I was actually looking at Paul Adler, who raised the issue to begin with. Yeah.
I apologize.
Sure.
Hi, Paul Adler. No, I don't necessarily, think that we need to make a motion on it, but I think that we need to delineate clean lines of where things are in the budget. Because if we start jumbling things now, it's just going to compound.
Okay. So, we have no amendments on the floor. The main motion is still on the floor, which calls for the additional painting, the stripping and waxing the floor, and the attic cleanup and a new sign to come out of the capital fund on expended monies. Are you ready for, Ruth has a comment to make?
Okay, Ruth Hoffman again. Since I think we need to fix what we're doing, I would make a motion to amend the motion to only expend the painting money from the capital fund. However, you want to fix that to be the legalese.
Well, would you like the rest of it to come out of the operating fund? Or do you want to make a motion that we only approve the 960 and the rest we don't address?
So, point of order. To spend current money, we need a motion at the meeting? I mean, if we just spent money on the floor or what the select board does, we don't ordinarily line by line approve how much is maintenance.
That's
I would think
right.
that they have the authority, the judgment to whether they should expend our operating funds.
They do, but this article is about using capital fund money, which is why I'm asking, do you want to change the entire motion to simply say $960 out of the capital
Yes.
fund?
Yes.
Okay. So Ruth has made a motion to amend the main motion so that the new motion would read, we authorize the following capital expenditure, single, in the current fiscal year, 2019-2020, $960 additional cost of painting the exterior of the town office building, and to pay for said expenditure from the capital funds on expended monies from the heat pump cost savings, meaning we remove the flooring and the attic cleanup from the motion, from the original article. I'm sorry? Oh, yes. And remove the sign. Thank you for the reminder. So that's the motion on the floor. Is there a second? Harold, you're seconding? Okay, so Ruth Hoffman moved. Harold Newell seconds. Conversation, yes. Chuck?
Chuck Fish. The other money then that's left behind in the capital fund, does that mean that would have to be spent on more obvious capital expenses?
Yes.
It's not legal to arbitrarily transfer it to the operating fund, is that correct?
That is correct, and that is why the select board put this article on the warning.
Yeah.
So you're right, the money, other than the money for the additional painting cost, would remain in the capital fund to be used as the body votes in future years.
Does it make sense to think that if they keep it in the capital fund, so it will reduce somewhat the cost of fire trucks, et cetera, and then they have to find money which would come out of the operating fund to do the other jobs, then in the long run, you come out even anyway. It's just you spent money out of different funds. You aren't spending any more money doing it that way, are you?
That is correct, but the point is that we have approved certain things for the capital fund, and you can't just move money around.
No, I'm not suggesting moving money around. You spend the money that's left over for capital expenditures in the future. And you find money elsewhere for waxing the floor. In the long run, you end up spending the same amount of money, I think.
Yes.
So, nothing to it.
Yes, Zeke?
We don't have any. Now, we checked the couch cushions before we came here, and we don't have,
Get close to the mic.
we don't have those funds that we can just dip into from our general budget.
I don't see any other hands. There's a motion on the floor. Oh, Lester?
I'm a little bit confused.
Could you start with your name, Lester?
Lester Dunkley.
Thank you.
I'm a little bit confused about the savings of because you have a heat pump. Is that because you're not using the electricity or what's going on there? And if it's a savings, you're not spending it on an electric bill, that means you could probably use it to do the rest of it. Am I correct or not?
Nope, that's not exactly right. Louis, you want to answer that?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. When the Energy Committee came to us last year, they proposed that we do $10,000 for a heat pump for the town office. And then when we looked further into it, we did something a little different. We bought a heat pump, but it was only $3,600. We got a $400 rebate on that, so it came to $3,200. So what we were asking for was to spend some of that $6,800 savings, but I understand what everybody's saying, and I sort of agree with them that we did a poor job of budgeting those items. We should have thought of that and put it into our budget. So the waxing should have to wait till next year or the following year, and the bat stuff will have to wait until the following year so the select board can put that, and the sign will have to wait and be put into the next budget, because we were trying to see where we had saved money this year, and that was one of the savings, so we thought we would use it. We were thinking that was, for the building, but where I guess you should have a certain number. So our mistake as far as I'm concerned, and I see some head shaking, so.
And the other little detail, we're voting to spend monies in this current year, and we're talking about a budget in the next year. And that gets me a little bit more confused on what the heck is going on. So I'm suggesting that you postpone or whatever you got to do to this whole thing, and let's just leave this money in the capital fund where it's supposed to be. Thank you.
So Lester would like to amend the amendment. No, that's not really it. Lester, if you want to not spend any of this money this year, then you would want to encourage people to vote down the main motion. We're still considering whether to amend the main motion. Does anyone have a comment on amending it to drop everything from the motion other than the exterior painting, $960? Any other questions on that? Okay. So the question before you is, do you want to amend Article 12 to only authorize using leftover capital funds to cover the $960 cost of painting the exterior of the town office building and using this year's capital fund money to do so? So vote yes if you want to authorize that, and if you want to drop everything else out of the motion. If you want to keep everything in here, including the new sign, vote no. All in favor of the amendment on the floor to fund the $960 only, signify by saying aye. All opposed, say no. We need a division of the House. I couldn't tell which had more, so I'm going to ask all those who voted yes to stand, or let us know if you need a card because you can't stand. Eliza, will you count this section? Zeke, will you count the middle section? Terry, you want to count the left section? If you are not a voter or you're just hanging out in the back, make sure you're not counted if you're not voting. Standing means yes. I like the amendment of dropping everything but the $960 for painting. Okay. 11. 21. 21 is 43. Please be seated, and all of those voting no, because you want the motion to continue to include all three items plus a sign. Wow, now it does seem more obvious. Okay, no. Everyone stand and stay. Standing, do you want to, can you count that again? Sorry. Eight plus you, 9, okay. 6 plus you is 7, 11. The ayes are 43, The noes are 27. So the original article has been changed, and the motion on the floor authorizes the Select Board only to spend the $960 on the additional cost of painting the exterior of the town office. So Lester, you want to vote no as we vote on the main motion because you don't want any money to be spent. So we're back to the main motion. I'll read it through. This is what we're talking about now. It has been moved and seconded that we authorize the following capital expenditure in the current fiscal year, 2019-2020. $960 additional cost of painting the exterior of the town office building and to pay for said expenditure from the capital fund's unexpected monies from the heat pump cost savings. Any further discussion on the motion on the floor? Yes, Calvin. We have a new mic runner, Maisie Golding. Maisie Golding there.
Just to be picky, you could remove the S's from the words expenditure.
I believe I did. Maybe I didn't speak very clearly, Calvin, but they're crossed off on my paper. Ruth, right up here.
Just to make sure, the word you said was unexpected, not unexpended, so that the motion is correct, that it's
Thank you,
unexpended.
Ruth. Ruth is correct. I misspoke. I said unexpected. The correct word is unexpended monies from the heat pump cost savings. Thank you. Any other questions and corrections, comments, anything? Yes, Ed.
Ed Anthes, well, you got me with the anything. I think this probably should have gone with the previous amendment, but it seems to me that that stuff in the attic is a health and safety issue, and I'm not clear on how the Select Board can access funds, but I would like to be assured that we who visit the town offices and those who work in the town offices are not exposed to that excrement for the next year and a half until the next fiscal year comes around.
Can we all by unanimous consent agree that we're going to encourage the Select Board to do whatever they can and perhaps prioritize that over some other things in the operating budget? Or do we want to make a motion out of that? Yes, Zeke.
Hey, how about we take some unexpended funds from the capital fund? Yes, unexpended.
Okay.
Can I make that a motion?
Ed, if you want to make a motion, let me know. Ed has left it to the good graces of the Select Board to use their discretion in trying to get that work done. Okay. Are you ready for the question? The question on the floor is, we authorize the following capital expenditure in the current fiscal year, 2019-2020, $960 additional cost of painting the exterior of the town office building and to pay for said expenditure from the capital funds on expended monies from the heat pump cost savings. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. And we have a painted building. Thank you. Article 13, to see if the voters will grant tax-exempt status to the Evening Star Grange for a period of 1 year, pursuant to the provisions of Title 32, Section 3840. Is there a motion?
Madam Moderator. Madam Moderator, I move that we grant tax-exempt status to the Evening Star Grange for a period of 1 year pursuant to the provisions of Title 32, Section 3840.
Lewis seconds. Any discussion? Seeing no hands, It has been moved and seconded that we grant tax-exempt status to the Evening Star Grange for a period of 1 year pursuant to the provisions of Title 32, Section 3840. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. And the Evening Star Grange is exempt, and we'll get another good lunch next year. Yes. Article 14. It's not mine. To see if the voters will grant tax-exempt status to Green Mountain Camp for a period of 1 year, pursuant to the provisions of Title 32, Section 3840. Mark.
I'm Mark Brown, and I move that the voters grant tax-exempt status to Green Mountain Camp for a period of 1 year, pursuant to the provisions of Title 32, Section 3840.
Susan Dagler, did you do the second? Thank you. It has been moved and seconded that the voters grant tax-exempt status to Green Mountain Camp for a period of 1 year, pursuant to the provisions of Title 32, Section 3840. Is there any discussion? Billy.
Billy Slade. I'm the executive director at Green Mountain Camp, and I just want to offer an invitation to everybody here to come and see what's right here in your community. We're celebrating our 103rd year this year. Last year we employed 8 Dummerston teenagers. We had nearly 400 girls come to the camp, and it's a wonderful treasure right here in Dummerston, and a lot of you probably don't even know where it is. So I want to invite you to come, check it out, see what you think. Lots and lots of changes have happened over the last 10 years, and it's a really exciting place to be a part of. So thank you.
Any further comments, questions? Seeing none, it has been moved and seconded that the voters grant tax-exempt status to Green Mountain Camp for a period of 1 year pursuant to the provisions of Title 32, Section 3840. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Article 15, shall the voters in the town of Dummerston appropriate the sum of $5,592 to be raised by taxes for the support of Southeastern Vermont Economic Development Strategies, SEVEDS, to provide workforce and economic coordination services to the Windham region? Yes, your name. I'm sorry, Christophe, say your name again, please.
I'm Christophe Gagne.
Christophe Gagne, thank you.
Madam Moderator, I move that the voters in the town of Dummerston appropriate the sum of $5,592 to be raised by taxes for the support of Southeastern Vermont Economic Development Strategies to provide workforce and economic coordination services to the Windham region.
Is there a second? Greg, was that you? No. Who did the second? Oh, Alex. Alex Wilson seconded. It has been moved and seconded that the voters in the town of Dummerston appropriate the sum of $5,592 to be raised by taxes for the support of Southeastern Vermont Economic Development Strategies, SEVEDS, to provide workforce and economic coordination services to the Windham region. Is Sarah here, or Christoph? You are. If there is no objection, we will allow Sarah Lang, who is not a Dummerston resident, to give us a little background on this motion. Hearing none, Sarah, you may speak.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much. I'll try and keep it brief, and I'm going to stand up here so you don't have to turn around. My name is Sarah Lang. I am a project manager at the Brattleboro Development Credit Corporation. I also have my colleague here, Alex Beck, who does workforce development with the Brattleboro Development Credit Corporation. This year, we are at 16 town meetings across the region. We ask every town to help support the work we do. As of a minute ago, we have 10 towns that have approved our funding. I've been here the past 2 years. Dummerston has approved our funding those past 2 years, so thank you very much for your continued support. I just want to give a few high-level points and then some town-specific points for your pleasure. So BDCC, the Brattleboro Development Credit Corporation, is one of 12 regional development corporations in the state. We are the boots on the ground, economic development and workforce development for the region. SEVEDS, the Southeastern Vermont Economic Development Strategies, is our sister organization. They are the think tank. They do the long-term strategy and planning. So SEVEDS does the long-term strategy. BDCC takes that and implements projects and programs. We are looked to by state and federal agencies as models for regional economic development in our programs, our systems, and our projects. The work we do is very complex, and SEVEDS allows us to go and innovate with our programs and our projects that helps sort of address these complex issues we see in the regional economy. I'm super proud of the work we do. All of our staff are super hardworking and dedicated to this region, so I'm really proud to be a part of it. Some town-specific things. We typically go to at least one select board meeting a year. They're open to the public, obviously, but not all public attends those. So we also did hold a public info session. We had 3 residents from Dummerston come. Great conversation, and hope they learned a lot from that. We've worked with a handful of businesses in Dummerston. I'll just name them. If you have any specific questions, I can answer that. We've worked with Hermit Thrush Brewery, Vermont Photonics, Landmark Trust, and Open Book Learning. What I want to spend a little more time on is the school population. The children are our future, as we know, and we recognize that at our organization. There are 26 Dummerston students at the CTE, and there are 56 Dummerston students at the Brattleboro Union High School. All sophomores across the region are invited to our sophomore summit, where they pick a career track and meet with professionals in that sector and get to learn about what it means to work in that sector. At CTE, we piloted a program where we do mock interviews, resume and cover letter writing, professional behavior intensive. That was piloted this spring. They're gonna blow it up, and they're developing curriculum as we speak. Teachers will be trained on it in the fall, and then hopefully 2021, it will be implemented in all of the classes at the CTE. For Brattleboro Union High School, we've taken the kids on 9 field trips, or field trips to 9 employers. That's healthcare, manufacturing, forestry, renewable energy, construction. And last but definitely not least, we've developed a alternative pathways workshop. It's for juniors and seniors who might not have a plan for after graduating high school. So it's open to all juniors and seniors, but specifically for those students. We cover career clusters in the Windham region. We highlight employers that are hiring quality positions. We help those students apply for those jobs. And we also bring VSAC in to talk about financial resources. There are annual reports on the back table. If you have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak and continuing to invest in our region.
Any comments, any questions of Sarah or otherwise? Yes, Christoph. Behind you? Oh.
It's okay.
I'm Chris Gagne from Hermit Thrush Brewery. I just want to speak to the behalf of SEVEDS and BDCC. I really feel like their economic development objectives are in the right place and valuing people. And they have helped us grow our business quite a bit. We have one facility in Dummerston over on Putney Road near Brattleboro, and we're very happy to have the region's support.
Any other comments or questions? Yes?
Yes, Maeve Jenks again. My only question is, how does the amount that you're asking compare to the other towns? Are you asking an equivalent from every town, or is it population-based? I was just curious how that fits in.
Sarah, we need a microphone for Sarah.
Thank you. That's a great question. So we ask every town for $3 per person. So the amount is $3 times the population.
Any other comments or questions? Are you ready for the question? Oh, no, Paul.
Hi, Paul Namendo. In years past, I've been a strong advocate for funding SubEd's request. In spite of the good work that they do, I would like to amend the motion to supplying them with $3,000 instead of the full amount. And I make this motion with the thought that at this point, prior to this motion, prior to this article, our taxes are going to be going up about 12.8% on the municipal side. And that doesn't take into consideration anything that's going to be coming down from the school budget, which is also going to be an increase in our taxes. And the school budget is 83 or 84% of our total tax bill. So we're talking about 15 to 17% of our tax bill. But with all that in mind, I think it is prudent, the fact that the municipal side will be going up 12.8%, to kind of still show us support for what they're doing, but yet modify it in light of our existing situation.
So there's a motion on the floor to amend the primary motion, reducing the amount for SevEds to $3,000. Is there, Harold, you're seconding that? Okay. So what we're discussing now is the amendment of lowering the amount from $5,592 to $3,000. Does anyone wish to speak to the amendment that is proposed? You're ready for the question on the amendment. Okay, the question on the floor is, shall we amend the article, the motion, to read that will appropriate the sum of $3,000 to be raised by taxes for the support of SevEds? All those in favor of the amendment to reduce the amount signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. It sounded like the no's were louder, but maybe they were just louder. Do you wish a division of the House? Yeah, I'm seeing a few nodding heads. Okay. A division of the House, just like we did a few minutes ago. Please stand if you vote yes to reduce the number to $3,000 from the higher number, and remain standing. You may be seated. Okay, all right. And if another, so 2 plus 1s? Okay. If you want to vote no because you want the amount to stay the same, please stand. Again, if you're hanging out in the back, make sure you're not counted unless you're actually voting. The votes that were yes to reduce the amount were 32. The noes to keep the amount the same were 40. So the amendment has failed, and the motion continues with the original figure. So now the motion on the floor is, shall we grant tax exempt, no, shall we appropriate the sum of $5,592 to be raised by taxes for the support of Southeastern Vermont Economic Development Strategies, SevEds, to provide workforce and economic coordination services to the Wyndham region. Is there further discussion on the original motion? Harold? Could someone bring a mic, please?
Harold Newell, can I ask the treasurer now what the increase will be on the total figure for the town's municipal tax rate?
Are you asking about the tax rate, Harold?
That's correct. On 100, what will it be on 100,000, the figure increase?
Okay. Charlotte, the treasurer's interrogating.
Without the sevens included, it is 43.8. Am I on?
Yes.
Okay. Without the sevens included, the current tax rate will be $43.80 increase on 100,000. With the sevens, it's $45.90.
$45.90. So Harold, the answer is without sevens, it's $43.08 per $100,000 of value. 80, thank you. $43.80 without the sevens allocation, and with it, it's $45.90. So that's an increase of $2.10 per $100,000 of real estate value. Yes, Chris.
Hi, Chris again from Hermit Thrush. Just to quantify a bit of our experience in interfacing with the BDCC and SevEds, we, in 2016, were not a Dummerston taxpayer, and we currently are. And it's been a minute since I've looked at it, but I think we pay around $14,000 a year in taxes for our facility. If SevEds was less well-funded, we would be less well likely. So I just wanted to hold a numbers side candle to economic hope and increasing employment.
Any other comments? Further discussion? Joe?
Joe Little. I'm with Park Place, and I'm at the Brattleboro Savings and Loan, and I would encourage, passing the article at $5,000. The SevEds does a great job, and what they're doing for youth is not duplicative of anything else that's going on. And I think we really need to do this for the young people, as well as getting businesses started. So I would encourage everyone to vote in favor of this. Thank you.
Everybody hear that? Okay. Any other comments or questions? You ready for the question? Okay. The motion on the floor is to appropriate the sum of $5,592 to be raised by taxes for the support of Southeastern Vermont Economic Development Strategies, SevEds, to provide workforce and economic coordination services to the Wyndham region. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Article 16, other business. Let me catch up with myself here. Okay. I'm going to start here with the Select Board. I believe Geraldine and Zeke have something they want to say. Is that correct?
Yeah, so Geraldine Wilson. I would just like to mention that this is my 5th year on the Select Board. Next year will be my 6th year and my last year. So although I could run again, we don't have term limits. I just wanted to let you all know that my position will be open, and may I speak for you, Zeke?
Well, I think I could speak for myself.
Okay, good. I'll let you speak for yourself. This year, since we had an open position with no one running, I did do a number of make a number of calls and talk to people, and I just wanted to say to everyone here that being on the select board is a really positive experience. It's probably less work than you might think it is. It gives you an opportunity to get to know people and understand the workings of a small town, which I was quite unfamiliar with and am now much more familiar with. And it has made me incredibly proud of our town office. So I would encourage you all, even if you think that you're not the kind of person that would be on a select board, to consider yourself as such and talk to your friends and neighbors. And it would be great to have multiple names on the ballot so that we have a true democracy and have the choice. And the last thing I'll say is we really want our select board to represent our town. So think about that, about being represented on the select board by yourself or by friends, neighbors, and others.
Well, I have another year left to my term, but I don't remember how long I have been on the select board, so I think that might be a sign that maybe I've been on long enough.
Christina, you had something you wanted to talk about.
So Cindy encouraged me last year to make the school...
Christina, state your name.
Sorry, Christina Naylor, sorry. Cindy last year encouraged me to try to make the school board portion move more quickly, and I think we have complied this year. So I just wanted to update, I am currently serving on the WSESD school board, and I just wanted to update the town very briefly, Cindy, on kind of the past year and what's been going on with the school. It's obviously bittersweet for me to be standing here instead of there presenting a full budget to you, but you will have an opportunity to vote on that budget March 17th, 6 p.m. in the high school gymnasium. There'll be an information session on March 10th, and I think that's at 6 o'clock, but look it up on the WSSU, and there's all kinds of communication council work pushing that out into the local paper. It is a $51 million budget, so it's where your vote counts for a lot. If only 10 people show up, you are responsible for passing $5 million worth of spending. So if you're on a power trip, that's the place to go. We actually got our budget completed in time so that there's copies of the school budget on the back table. It's in gray newsprint to save on our printing costs. Thank you. Thank you. I have also made a pamphlet, so in case you missed my long and laborious explanation of budgeting, I have tried to replace myself with a flyer. So in this flyer are 4 easy steps to understanding the tax bill, links to how the education funding happens and how to calculate your own tax bill if you're curious how this affects yours. I don't have Charlotte at my side here to say what every change would cause, but you can do that actually online. There's also, I want to direct people's attention, our legislators, and I grabbed every single one of them, and I think Jody spoke to it earlier, is that the legislature is considering changing how we weight pupils in calculating our equalized pupil expenditure. What did that mean? So what that means is that you get a little more state support when your students have a little more need. And that is a requirement of the law, Act 60, that was passed in 1997. So they made a guess as to what it cost to educate pupils, and after 20 years, the legislature decided, hey, what does it really cost to educate children who are economically disadvantaged, who are learning English, or students who live in rural communities? And they funded this study, UVM, and I think it was Rutgers did this study, and it turns out that people in the WSCSD have not been compensated fairly for the students we have. And if the funding study had been pushed through last year, our tax rate, our unified tax rate, instead of being $1.71, would be $1.53. That's a huge difference for our district. Of course, that money's coming from somewhere. And so the legislature needs to hear from people in the community that these changes should be put through more quickly, because a lot of people are saying, let's wait on this because there's winners and losers. But I think we have been unfairly supported by the state for the students we have in the WSESD. So in this pamphlet, it explains all the words I just said and gives you contact information. And the school board, in our last meeting, passed a resolution supporting moving forward with the weighting study unanimously. So if you get 8 people from 4 towns to unanimously agree on something, that is progress. I also, while it's a bittersweet moment, I have some happy moments, and one of them is to make sure that everybody gets to put a face to the name of our new principal, Julianne Egan. If we could give her a nice warm welcome. So one of the very last things the Dummerston Town School Board did was to hire our new principal, Julianne. I've had the pleasure of knowing Julianne for 16 years. She's an incredible educator. It was a really good feeling. I see my fellow school board member, Michael, going, yes. It was quite a note to go out on as we were dissolving, that we could hand over the school to Julianne's incredibly capable hands and know that our school is under great leadership in this era of transition. Onward, I also want to thank the community for passing the article amendments. It puts in place the school cannot be closed without a vote of this town. Grades cannot be removed from the school without a vote of this town. And I think that was one of my priorities, to make sure that what I heard coming from the communities as a major concern of Act 46 was addressed. So I appreciate everybody who got out, understood those very hard to read articles and helped us pass them, and they passed in all the communities. So that really bodes well for moving forward. Let's see. I also want to mention that another article amendment that was passed created leadership councils. It is a way for the local community to have connection to the school board that moves around all the time and is a little less accessible, unfortunately, than our Dummerston Town School Board was. So if you're interested in hearing what leadership councils are doing, it's on the school website as well as the WSES website, and there's agendas and minutes for those meetings. You're welcome to attend and visit. If you're interested in serving, you should contact Julianne, who you just met. I want to let you know that I was very concerned. This is the end of my tenure. I was very concerned because we have a great board now. The WSESD board has really stepped up and done the work of representing all of our students. And I'm thrilled to say that we have 2 people who are running for those positions in Dummerston, no write-in candidates, and I'm thrilled to know that there's somebody stepping into the position from Dummerston. So we'll now have Thomas Nolan, because they're uncontested, Thomas Nolan and Michelle Green will be serving you, and I don't see, Thomas was here earlier, I don't see Michelle. But you'll find them when you have questions, I'm sure. It's a small town, you can't hide. But I'm very excited for the people that have agreed to serve. So I'm around if you have any questions on your taxes. I shouldn't have buried the lead on this. Your taxes the tax rate will increase. Hold on, let me get my numbers in front of me, because I'm sure Paul and Jody will have questions. The tax rate in Dummerston, if the current budget passes, will be $1.67. Which is the lowest. We have a good CLA. We have a favorable CLA, which is defined here in full writing. So that's an increase, I think, of it's a 1.8% or so increase over our rate from last year. Other towns have not had good CLAs, so their numbers are going up much more. But it's in the pamphlet, and I thank you all for the opportunity to serve. It has truly been a pleasure to serve everyone in this community, even when I didn't agree with you. And I would have stayed serving on that Dummerston board till you had to, pull me out with the new payloader. So thank you all.
Mary Ellen? Mary Ellen, I need you to use the mic, thanks.
Sure. I'm Mary Ellen Copeland, and I'm with the Dummerston Conservation Commission. And we've been doing a lot of work with maps in the town plan. It says that we're supposed to develop a ridge line overlay for the town. It's upside down, yeah. And that we're supposed to develop a ridge line overlay for the town, and we happen to have a wonderful map maker on the Conservation Commission, and he kept bringing in maps, and we're trying to figure out what's a ridge line in Dummerston. And one night he came in with this map, and I thought it was worthy of being shared with all of you. We did have a map program in the fall, and we had 60 or 70 people come over to the basement of the church, and we had maps all around, and we looked at maps. So probably have other meetings like that, so try to get out to them. But I wanted to bring your attention to this one because it's a particularly interesting one. Back in about 1940, there had been some big floods, and the people down in Connecticut and Massachusetts who were trying to build homes in the floodplains were really upset because every time we had one of those big storms, it flooded the floodplains, it flooded their homes. So they wanted us to put in a dam right here. And this dam is right at the metal bridge. And if they had put in that dam, it would have impounded the water all the way. This little line is the West River. Instead, we would have the West Lake. Here's East-West Road. You would have to go up to Camp Art to where it hits Green Mountain Camp Road to not be in the water. Green Mountain Camp would not exist. John Anderson would be sitting right on the edge. Where you turn up to Hague Road, John Anderson would have been sitting right on the edge. I don't know how you would have gotten to my house at all. So if you want to take a look at this map, right now, if we had this dam, 141 buildings would have been submerged. At that time, there were 61 that would have taken out 5 cemeteries, 30 miles of road. All of Route 30 would have gone all over the West Dummerston Village. So you might think to yourself, how did we stop it? And we look to that, we think about how did people solve problems in the past in the community. And interestingly enough, there's a picture. This is what they did. They met the federal agents when they came, and they were there with their, what kind of guns were those? This is what they did. And we're trying not to solve problems in Dummerston that way. We're trying to learn and teach. Okay. I can give it to you, Emma. So that's one of the fun things that we figured out. We've had a lot of other kinds of meetings. We had a great meeting in this room where 80 people came and heard the bear specialist from the state come. And we had a program in the fall where the state biologist came, Kim Royer. We had the state geologist come. We had maps all over the downstairs of the church. We had somebody that was here from the Southeastern Vermont Museum, and we had wild animals in here, and we had about 60 people. And so we've had a lot of fun with our programs. We have one coming up on the waterways of Dummerston. And we have one coming up on monarchs, a big program on monarchs. So that's what we're up to. A lot of you have made contributions so that we have the money to pay to have all of these filmed, and we appreciate that. And the money also goes to support programs, environmental education programming here at the school. So thank all of you for that.
Bill in the back.
Bill Schmidt, speaking for Dummerston Cares. Cares is an all-volunteer organization that exists to do what it can to help all Dummerston residents stay well and get weller. A person who's gotten weller is John Warren here, who's a steadfast member of our Tai Chi classes. So we have Tai Chi classes, yoga classes, and for those who can't do Tai Chi or yoga, too strenuous, takes too long, we're going to have a seated rumba class this spring. 2 sessions for people who want exercise but can't do things like Tai Chi and yoga. So these will be 2 sessions at the Grange, late April, early May. And all I can say is that if a person knows how to sit, they can do seated rumba. It's to music and a lot of fun. So we're going to do that, and hopefully in May and June we'll be having some hikes and walks, and all are invited to participate in those. We also, this month, will be working with the school here to put on, I'm going to sit down because I'm kind of shaky. We're going to put on a program called Screenagers. It's an hour-plus long film that is about what computers, smartphones, tablets do to the development of brains of children and teenagers. A very good film. It was shown at Academy School last year, and there was some good discussion afterward, as there will be discussion after the showing this year. It's on March 19th here at the school from 6 to 8. And we're really looking for a good turnout because it's a solid subject that needs attention and thought and discussion by families and all of us who have an interest in the future of our children. The last program I would like to mention that's in the works is a chronic pain management program. There are more people with chronic pain in this country than those who have heart conditions, cancer, and diabetes. We know there are people with chronic pain in Dummerston. This is pain that people have had for more than 3 months. It may be shoulder pain, back pain, neck pain, from arthritis, from post-surgical and post-surgical recovery. So this is going to be a program we're co-sponsoring with the Brattleboro Hospital, the Vermont Department of Health. It will be 6 sessions long, 2.5 hours each session. A serious program for those with chronic pain. Those who have been through it, through this program, tell us it has helped them quite a bit. So we wanted to let you know about these programs. And if you want more information, there's a flyer on the chronic pain management program on our table out back in the hallway. And there's also information on all of CARE's other programs and services. You can get your questions answered by calling the CARE's message line, 257-5800, or emailing CARES. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob. Wow. Jody.
You all heard that Christina was retiring. And this is a huge loss to Dummerston and fellow board members, etc. I want to tell you a little bit about Christina. She joined the school board a few years ago, the Dummerston School Board that was, and she quickly became chair of that board. She went on, when we were fighting Act 46 and merger, she organized the committees for alternative governance structure, and she ran that also. Then when we did get merged, she was part of the transition board, and then she ran for the merge board. And she was elected chair. This last year has been horrendous for her. She has been amazing. She's not only chair of that board, she's a part of the WSESU board. She got elected to the Vermont School Boards Association board that meets up in Montpelier once a month or more. Let's see. And she's been on several of the committees of this board. Meanwhile, she's been working full-time, although her husband, Kelp, wasn't sure that she was working full-time, in her family business. And she's been on the Green Mountain Camp Board, and I think chair of that. No, she says she wasn't chair of that. And so in the meantime, she's been taking care of her family, raising 2 children who are in high school. Her husband, Kelt, and family will be glad to have her home. Her retirement is Dummerston's loss, and we all wish Christina well.
Roger Turner, I saw your hand up. Can I get a microphone down here?
I was just going to say what Jody said.
Yes, I'm sorry, I forget your name. Yes.
I'm Sue Kern. I'm representing Lydia Taft Pratt Library Board. And I was going to give you a very quick rundown of how we've been doing this past year. We are seeing more continued use of the library, more library users, more circulation. We have changed our library hours by public input, and we are now open 3 afternoons a week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday morning, with volunteers from 10 to 1. We put a second little free library in the school. It's right out across from the principal's office. I think it's been very well received. The first one is on the porch at the town hall, at the town office. And it's all donations that go into it, and one of the board members actually take care of this. There's a new librarian whom we could have met because she was here for a while, but had to go to open the building at 2 o'clock this afternoon, so you missed her. Her name is Dina Marger. A lot of our regular library users have been coming in to introduce themselves to her, and please stop by and meet the new librarian and pick yourself up a library card if you don't have one yet. And last thing I have to mention is that we do have our annual spring fundraiser, our book sale and silent auction. That's the 3rd Saturday in May every year, May the 16th. So I hope you'll stop by when we do that. Thank you very much.
Katie, in the front here.
I'm Katie Berg, and I'm on the board of Dummerston Cares. And here's something that I'm going to read that people maybe didn't know. It's to the residents of Dummerston from the Putney Food Shelf. The Putney Food Shelf wants to be sure that you know we are also a resource for residents of Dummerston and the surrounding area. Please help us ensure that we are reaching those who could benefit from our services in your community. Our mission is to provide supplemental, healthy food to area people in need. At the Putney Food Shelf, you are likely to find fruits and vegetables, including local in-season, milk, eggs, pasta and sauce, beans and rice, meat, fish, gluten-free options, and more. The Putney Food Shelf is open twice a week, every week of the year. Tuesday from 6 to 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 9 to 10 a.m. We're located in the Putney Community Center at 10 Christian Square if you use the side ramp. Shopping is anonymous, and there is no proof of income needed since we work on an honor system. In addition to open hours, on the 4th Thursday of every month, there's a produce drop at Putney Meadows parking lot. That's from 9:30 until 10:15 a.m. This is provided in collaboration with the Vermont Food Bank, with several pallets worth of fresh produce delivered. It is free and open to all. Bring your own shopping bags. You will find additional information at putneyfoodshelf.org and in our 2019 Year in Review, which you can pick up at the Dummerston Cares table here at the school and at Town Hall, but the Putney Cares table is right behind in the corridor. The Putney Food Shelf is very much looking forward to collaborating with Dummerston Cares to expand our outreach to Dummerston. Thank you.
Kyle, the woman in the back. Yes, you had your hand up. Kyle, the woman in the back.
Hi, I'm Akara Draper. I'm one of the coordinators for the Rides program for Dummerston Cares. And we are always looking for drivers. And I want to tell you what that gig looks like. So when we get a request to take Dummerston residents to either Cheshire or Dartmouth Hitchcock or BMH or occasional shopping around town or to a dentist or an eye appointment, you get a Dummerston Cares driver. And how you get that, they're all volunteers, and I'm coordinating them, and I'd call you up and I'd say, gee, we've got a client that needs to go to BMH next Tuesday, can you take them? And it's going to take about an hour, and then you take them home. You get to say yes or no. Every single time you can say, oh no, thank you. But the more drivers we have, the better I can cover the need of this community. So it's really critical that we, like this winter, we were down to 3 drivers, and that's just too much for those 3. But if we had 10 drivers and even 6 said no, there's just someone new driving all the time. So I think that's all I have to say. Oh, you can choose how often you want to do in your application. I want to drive once a month. Okay, if you want to drive 2 times a week. If you don't want to drive in snow or rain, you can pick any kind of condition you don't want to do. So that's my encouragement. Please become a volunteer driver for Dummerston Cares.
Thank you.
And you can sign up at the table out there.
Okay.
Or call us.
Chuck, you want to raise your hand? Thank you.
Chuck Fish. A couple of remarks from the Dummerston Historical Society. First is that on the table, long table at the back of the room, there's a strikingly handsome T-shirt with a picture of the covered bridge. And you may buy one if you'll speak to Jody or Norman Doe or Gail Sorensen. It's guaranteed to raise your social status and your general acceptability in public if you were to wear it. The second comment is equally important and maybe more important. And that is that the Historical Society is very grateful to the many citizens of Dummerston who have contributed to the repair, to the salvation, actually, of the Historical Society schoolhouse in Dummerston Center. And equally grateful to the town of Dummerston, who generously contributed money at last year's town meeting. So with these funds, we've been able to do major structural repairs. We've graded the land around the building to improve the drainage. We've installed gutters, and we are using dehumidifiers in the crawl space to try to dry out the area. Some monitoring is required. That goes on regularly. There are some uncertainties about how it's all going to work in the long run. But the direction is good, and the building is saved. And for that, we thank you once again very much.
Thank you. Real quick, again.
Could you start with your name, Eric?
I'm sorry, Eric Lineback. As Energy Committee Chair, I would like to officially thank Stan, a.k.a. Smokey Howe, who I don't see here, who has served on the committee for many years, long before I joined, and contributed immensely. The guy loves, he's still around, crunching numbers and doing research, and has really been a key member of our committee. Our meeting last night was his official last meeting, so I wish him well. Again, he's still around and in town, but he's just not going to be helping us on the committee anymore. And in light of that, I would like to also plug the Energy Committee to all of my fellow residents. Anyone interested in joining us, helping us, we would welcome that, so get in touch. Thank you.
Ed, down front.
Thank you. Ed Anthes, speaking on behalf of Green Mountain Conservancy and our Deer Run Nature Preserve project. Last year, you'll recall that town meeting gave unanimous support to this project, and I'm happy to report that in December we closed on the first 287 acres of the nature preserve. So that land is preserved in perpetuity for all of us. It's open for recreation, for hiking, for hunting. You can access it on Camp Arden Road. We are entering the second phase, raising funds to purchase an adjacent 626 acres that will include 2.5 miles of West River frontage. That land is in Brookline and in Newfane. But when you get the chance, come out. There's a trail that's 2.2 miles from Camp Arden Road up to the summit and back down again, another 2.2 miles. You can see the covered bridge from high on the hill. And beautiful old trees, so try to come out.
Anyone else? Yes, Calvin.
While we're on the...
Calvin, your name?
Oh, Calvin Farwell. While we're on the subject of Dummerston Cares and recognitions, I want to say that Bill Johnson, who is not in this room right now, probably he's not here because he's busy moving from his home on Sticking Brook Road to an apartment in Colony Mill in Keene, back near Bill's roots. Bill was a very active a very active participant in a number of committees, including Dummerston Cares. I think he was one of the founders, isn't that right? Yes. He went about his business fairly quietly, so maybe many of you never got to know him. But he is an octogenarian himself, and so he deserves a rest. If you ever see Bill, just pat him on the back for all he's done.
Roger?
Thank you, Roger Turner. We are down to kind of the very end, but if any of you haven't taken advantage of doing the broadband survey, which is being provided, tablets are being provided to do it in the back hall, please do. It's to determine interest in and potential for creating a communication union district in this area to try to run broadband to last mile. So particularly if you live up away from the road and you haven't yet, away from the main roads, and you haven't yet filled out a survey, please do that. It's also available online. If you go to the wyndhamregional.org website, it's available there. Thank you.
Yes, Maeve?
Maeve Jenks again. I wasn't going to speak, but we're all giving acknowledgement. I just wanted to say thank you to our auditors. I did it for a couple of years, and it was just too much, and I had to back away. And so I know Charlotte acknowledged the work that went into making our town report, and then it was unfortunate we didn't get it in time, but I started to clap and realized I was the only one. So I just wanted to take a moment to specifically acknowledge those that audit these reports every year, and monthly and quarterly, and then make this report, because it is not easy, and it's paid but basically volunteer. So I just wanted to say thank you very much. And if we can clap for that, and then I'm going to talk again. Sorry, I'll be very quick. I also just wanted to say that I am part of our recreation board, and while we would love to do more, and when I joined the board, I was all gung-ho about the things that we can do in our community and get involved recreationally, we are not man-powered enough to do more than just run the youth sports program, which consists of soccer, basketball, and baseball, which I promise takes a lot and is very rewarding. The thought that a lot of these children who learn these sports and learn how to have a team and have self-confidence, I'm involved with every sport, and it's why I keep doing it. And but I ask that people look to get involved. We're always looking for more hands and coaches and referees. So if you love a sport or you wish that our town did more with the recreation board, please reach out, get in touch with us. Anybody in the town office knows how to reach me specifically, and we would love your input, and we would love to be able to do more for our town. We're just limited with our time and resources. So thank you all as a town. I love living here and being a part of this, and I appreciate you all.
Eric?
So over the weekend, I was listening to the mainstream media and was...
Sorry, Eric, could you state
Eric
your name?
Kruger. Sorry. I was listening to the mainstream media and was slightly overwhelmed about all the discussion about the coronavirus. And I actually emailed the select board, who responded within a matter of hours, saying, I'm going to bring up this topic at town meeting because my understanding is that due to the way our government is structured and budget cuts and what all and so forth, that the response to such an incident in our community would be really left locally. We're not going to get a lot of support from up above. And I'm heartened by the fact that Dummerston has spent time and effort on what we've traditionally called resilience, whether that be to a natural disaster or a weather disaster or something like that. So I feel fairly confident that Dummerston's a step ahead of those poor souls in New York City. But I started to jot down the number that was mentioned by representatives for the Department of Health if somebody had a concern about their exposure or their travel, but I didn't finish writing it down. So I have 802 on my paper here. And my request to the select board is that somewhere on the town website or in the town documents, when somebody Googles coronavirus Dummerston, there is a link to whom they can call if they have concerns. And also that we think in advance before we go to Brown Roberts and try to buy the N95 masks that are out of stock for 4 months. What do we really need to do as individuals and as a community so that if we find ourselves housebound or limited geographically, what we can do to help each other and help ourselves so that we ride this one out a little bit better than other folks. My understanding is in the end we'll probably be all right, but there's going to be some social disruption that we're not accustomed to. And so I think it bears everyone thinking, what can I personally do and what can I do to support my neighbors? And having a phone number to call if you have questions, even if it's busy all the time, is one step I think our town can take.
Eric, I believe that phone number is 802-863-7240. Anyone else? Anyone else has something to contribute today? Oh, Terry, sorry.
Terry Chapman, I move to adjourn.
I'll second.
Second.
You got that?
Yes.
All in favor of adjournment, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? We're adjourned. Have a great year.